So I'm Courtney Williams. I produce the blog Outlander Behind the Scenes. I do cast and crew interviews. I write blog posts, and I have this discussion with these three amazing souls. And tonight we are discussing the finale, which is a bittersweet for me. It's episode 512, Never My Love, written by Tony and Matt and directed by Jamie Payne. And I am drinking, can you guess?
Water.
Electrolyte water.
Electrolytes.
Just water.
So boring.
I know. I'm demolding.
My name is Catherine, and I am a family physician who wonderfully watches Outlander now through a medical eye, thanks to Carmen. I also write for Blacklanders Convos, and I am a book lover and a show lover, mutually, exclusively. And I am drinking a pomegranate mojito in a mason jar.
Yeah.
Yum.
I'm Carmen, and I'm a retired professor of human anatomy, retired officially from my university, but I still write the Outlander Anatomy blog, so I'm still teaching lessons and fun facts about the human body and medicine, and it's a lot of fun. I love Outlander in all its forms. Sometimes I have little things that I say about it that I've noticed, but overall, I think it's a splendid way to spend my retirement days. Oh, I'm drinking water.
Oh,
Boring.
Out of my water bottle.
It's Friday night, you guys. Water. I can't believe this. Okay, I'm Antoinette, and for a living, I am a public defender who can't seem to get any of our clients out of jail this week. I discovered Outlander in season 2 and then subsequently discovered the books. I think I am a show lover more so than a book lover, even though I love the books. I love the show. And I don't hate watch the show to criticize and to nitpick. I just want to see excellence. And I am drinking, it's Friday freaking night. I'm drinking Michelob Ultra with lime and prickly pear cactus infusions.
Ooh,
Fancy.
sounds good.
Fancy. Yeah, I couldn't be bothered with the frosted mug tonight. I'm just necking it.
I'm going to give my overall impression. I thought this was a really strong episode. I was riveted throughout. I thought it was well written, well acted, and compelling. There were some issues, but overall, I thought it was a great finale.
I can't decide if I like it or not. Courtney's laughing at me. There were things about it that I liked. There were some artistic license that I didn't quite get. There was a lot of good acting. There was a bit of choppiness, but overall it was not the strongest episode of the season, and it left me with nothing to look forward to for next season. Not that all finales have to have cliffhangers, but there was nothing to say, ooh, I want to make sure I watch next season to see what happens, because there was nothing that would compel me to do that, other than the fact that I just love the show and love the actors and love the book.
My overall impression is that I thought it was excellent. It was great television. I feel the same way about it that I did 511. I thought there was great acting. I thought the directing was phenomenal. I thought the artistic aspect of going back to the 60s at first threw me off the first time I watched it, even though my eyes were leaking tears again. But then as I watched it additional times, I have really come to appreciate that interjection and what was happening with Claire mentally when those flashbacks would come to her. I was deeply touched by a number of the scenes, and the tenderness and caring, even the violence at times was, I thought, completely appropriate and deserved. I thought, and I did see, I have to disagree with you, Catherine, because I did see something to look forward to. Those storm clouds with the thunder and lightning in the distance was a forewarning of what's coming their way. And I thought that Richard Brown also was another warning for the future. And I think we're going to see more about those things as we approach season 6, pardon me.
You're putting out into the universe a season 7. I like it.
Let's see if it works.
First time I watched it, like Courtney, I was riveted because my mouth was like this. Huh? The hell? So I said, no, let me watch it again. I watched it 3 times in a row. And by the end of the 3rd watching, 3 things I said about the episode. It was bold, it was daring, and it was brilliant TV. I thought the production, I thought the presentation, I love the risks they took. And I love that even in a season 5, they are not afraid to go places and take risks. So for that reason, I thought it was a brilliant bit of TV. That being said, it still left me dissatisfied, even at the end of the 3rd reading, story-wise, because I thought it was light on the story and the episode was too short.
Okay. We got some varied opinions here. Favorite scenes? Catherine.
Favorite scenes. They're going to seem a bit unusual.
They always are.
The freak.
One of my favorite scenes, actually, even though it was a rape scene, was when the Brown nephew, that scene in which he, I guess with premature ejaculation or something, but the look on Claire's face, it was just brilliant acting because it would have been very easy to miss her facial expression, like, what? And part of that is because I knew the book, so I knew what, went through her head at that moment, but still the acting in that moment was still, she's in the middle of a trauma, she's in the middle of thing, and she still had this thing like, okay, what just happened? Or what just didn't happen? So I thought that was that was one of my favorites, just because it was just so well acted. What followed, of course, that I don't, wouldn't say that was my favorite. My other favorite was the very last scene when Jamie and Claire were together. And I liked that line, that they ended with that line. That, how do you feel safe? To me, it was just perfect. The other scenes that I liked were few, because they were almost like they took scenes from prior episodes and reproduced them in this episode. Like the scene where they're standing near the river and she's wrapped in his tartan and he's standing off to the back. That was almost identical to the scene they did right before she went to the stone. When he walks into the room and she kind of pulls the shawl over, that's almost identical to what she did when he walked in on their wedding night. So I just started noticing those little things, and those were the scenes that I liked because it kept me interested to see, okay, what else are they going to do that's identical to what they've done before?
Yeah, that's
interesting.
I didn't catch the wedding night one. I think I was.
It was almost identical. She pulled one over her shoulder.
You're right. As you say that,
it was very similar.
It was after when he
Yeah.
was trying to when he came back up with the food and she was
He's
sitting down and he was trying to to
play with
connect
their
and she
hair.
Cozy.
Mhm.
yeah
Yeah, yeah.
you're
Yep.
right.
Mhm.
Good observation. Carmen?
Well, it's very hard for me to choose a favorite scene because there were many that I was very taken with. But one of the ones that just made me cry was when Jamie found her and realized how deeply that she had been injured and abused. When he takes her arm and puts it around his neck so gently and tenderly, he's just being really, really careful because he knows how wounded she is. And then lifted her, that just touched my heart really, really deeply. His caring and his tenderness for her. And, it must have broken his heart to see her as broken as she was. And he conveyed that, in my opinion. She also conveyed her brokenness. I thought that the attack scene from Claire's gaze, where it was on the tilt, was brilliant. I just thought and it wasn't just one continuous shot where those men were being either killed or hurt deeply. Instead, it was flashes here and there, and the lighting, the backlighting, it was so dramatic and so brilliantly done. And you got to see the different men in Jamie's group, doing their best to kill for Milady or kill for Claire because they had of what they had done. I thought those two were just splendid. And then I really liked the scene by the stream later when Claire has obviously washed herself. And you remember in the book, she straightens her nose because it's broken by the stream. But those things weren't shown. But the way that Jamie stood, with his arms folded and just stood back guarding, but giving her the space she needed to try to deal with her emotions and her brokenness. I just thought that was extraordinarily tender. And the way that she asked about Marcelly and said, something must be wrong with my mind because I thought I saw Roger. And that whole thing as it played out, I thought was extremely well done.
My first one is the same. My favorite is the one by the stream where she's wrapped in his tartan. And, just seeing it's such a callback to season 1. And just seeing them together, her wrapped in that, him in his kilt and his sark, and they've been there before when Claire, was just coming out of the witch trial and was really shaken. And then they've been there before when Jamie was broken, that scene feels really central to those characters to me. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it was so season 1, which is so central to those characters, except for they were their older selves. There was something really beautiful about that to me. And then my second favorite was the last scene. I thought that was so beautiful. I thought it was so artistic. The way their bodies were shaped on the ground, the fact that it was thundering out, not on the ground, on the bed, and the lighting, and just, him saying, Christ, you're what is
brave.
Brave,
brave things.
You're a brave wee thing. Am I? How do you feel? Safe. Yeah, I thought that was really beautiful and a wonderful ending. And the third one was when Jamie first comes upon Claire, when she's lying there and he's looking for her. His face, just Sam's portrayal of that, it just said everything. He just was you saw it all, the horror and the anger, and then the oh no, and the tenderness, and then also a little later in that scene when Fergus and Ian both saw her, and then pledged to kill for her. I thought that those were great, and I had other ones too. The Brie Claire Marsley reunion,
That was nice.
was beautiful.
I like the whole 60s flashback, and that damn song won't stop playing in my head.
Mine too.
I love seeing everybody. I loved seeing Myrtle come back, and and Jocasta. And that is why I said it was brilliant TV, because we knew the horror that Claire was going through. And when you juxtapose it with these wonderful, beautiful scenes, it just made the horror even more horrible. And so that is why I liked those scenes, because it really threw into relief what Claire was going through and made it horrible without it being overly graphic, which is where a lot of productions, I think, make the mistake of thinking the more graphic they are, the more horrible something will be. And that's not the case, because my imagination went to her horror because of what she had to conjure up to be able to bear it. So that is why the 60s stuff was, those were among my favorite scenes. The other one would have to be when Jamie comes up into the room after she is bathed and she's sitting down, and he is trying to figure out what to do and how to approach her, and then she talks about what she has survived and how she's not going to let this break her. I thought Katrina was splendid in that scene. I felt all the rage, all the horror, everything. I thought that she just threw down. And my other favorite scene would have had to be when Marcelly killed that bastard Brown. You know how I feel about Lauren Lyle as an actress, and I thought that she really blossomed, and I like the whole interaction, all her facial expressions. That was a satisfying scene for me, so it was one of my favorites. Since they're taking so much license, I would have preferred that Jamie and John Q. Myers, Fergus, and Ian had come in, thrown him off the table, and just kicked him the same way that he kicked Claire. I wanted them to just stomp him. That would have been very satisfying.
Yeah, I had a kind of similar feeling that he got off easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, Jamie did mention that they beat him before, I guess.
I remember how I felt when I saw that he was kicking Claire, and I just wanted him to get back that little bit of his own medicine.
Well, and
So
I think if
that was the
Jamie
scene
had
you
known,
actually wanted to see.
yeah.
I said that was a scene you actually wanted to see. Usually you say
yes, but
they
I
could
will
have left
take
that off.
I will take Marcelly jabbing him with a needle that he had destroyed before. Karma came right around and bit him in the arse. Well, in the neck.
I think if Jamie had half an idea of what he had done, personally had done to Claire, he would have
gutted him.
Oh,
yeah. He would probably would have done like a Braveheart, like slowly vivisect and then remove his organ.
Yeah.
My other favorite scene was Jamie riding into Brownsville with that body and throwing it down. The big brass balls on him. Yes, I love that.
Let's do what worked for me, Catherine.
What worked for me, the acting. Katrina did a phenomenal job. I liked that it was, I felt like this was her best episode of all episodes.
Of the season or of all the seasons?
All of the seasons.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I feel like her acting has improved from season 1 till now, and that it culminated into this episode showing what she has become as an actress, but also what she's become as a producer. I think that, to me, this was the epitome of the strong woman that Stars has been trying to shove down our throats for the last 5 seasons. It was just well done. That is the epitome of what women's power is, to create a platform for you to shine, and to and for her to act in a way so that her message gets across without it having to be so extreme. Even though, granted, she was being raped, but it still screamed female empowerment in spite of what was going on. And of course, and that culminated into her saying, this won't break me. So, and it wasn't this won't break me. It wasn't like one of those. It was just, I've been through enough so that I can get through this. Yeah. And even part of that with Jamie almost looked envious when she said that. To me, it was almost like, wow, because it broke me.
No, but he was also 23.
Yeah, and he was tortured a little bit.
He was tortured.
Yeah, but I mean, but the look
personal.
on it, I felt like it was the look on his face. I'm not saying he had any reason to be jealous. He didn't, obviously.
Yeah.
Or any reason to be envious in any way. But the look on his face was, I just got that flash. But Sam's such a good actor. You can get those flashes from him when he doesn't say anything.
I saw admiration.
Yeah.
I saw that too.
And like that he was in awe, like,
yeah.
Wow.
But see, that's the thing with him. He's such a good actor that he can give him 2 seconds and he can go through 4 different emotions.
Yeah.
So, he was those things too, but I saw that it was almost like almost an aha moment. Now, the other thing that worked for me was the family dynamics. I just liked the way that Ian was playing with the children. They seemed to show him a lot interacting with children, which I think is some foreshadowing as to why he is affected so much by what's happened in the past, but that's in the books. I won't spoil anything. But also the way, it's sad, but every single person in that family has been through some trauma. And so the way that they're protecting her and the way that they're interacting with her may seem like they're being a little bit hands off, but I think all of them understand that she needs that space because they know what it feels like. And so they're not smothering her. I just felt that was very well done.
Carmen?
Me? Oh my gosh, there were so many things I liked in this episode, but I will say that one of the things I liked was the inclusion of so many book quotes, so many lines and statements from the book that were in there, and that was just terrifically satisfying to me, because there are few people that can say it better than Diana, honestly, or can write it better than Diana. So I love her words. Very rarely do I ever find a blip in the road when I'm reading her work. So I was very pleased about that. I love Ian as a warrior. I just think he just is shining in that part. And the look on his face when he walks up and sees Claire, and then Fergus stands behind him. Somebody, was that you, Kathy, that mentioned it? I think somebody mentioned it. I was just shaken by the look on their face. I mean, they were just like, Courtney. Sorry, Courtney.
I don't care. That's fine.
I was just shaken by their, how they were shaken.
Yeah.
Seeing this woman that they all love and that they revere. Honestly, she's the matriarch of that family.
She's Fergus's mother, basically.
Yes.
And Marsley's, and Bree's, and Rogers, and Ian's. Yeah, so that's all their mother. Yeah.
So I just love him as a warrior. I loved the, I didn't at first. I thought, what in the world? when the 60s stuff came on. But I had such fun finding all of the Easter eggs that I could find in that, and they were all over the place. I've limited mine to just those that are visually Easter eggs. I think some people have also done verbiage that was Easter eggs or went outside of the 60s scene, and I didn't. I stayed with the 60s scene itself, and then looked for visual likenesses of what I saw there, and I found 27 so far. That was a lot of fun to see all those. The first time, the very first thing that I noticed was that microscope, and I thought, wait a minute. So I had a great time with that. I had to reflect on what a mess Fergus created when he took that piece of paper and turned it in to be printed. He had no idea what the what would be the outcome, the bottom line of that innocent act. I was deeply touched when Claire started scrubbing her skin. She did that whole scene. She just did so extremely well, and just wanting to get symbolically rid of that experience as much, cleanse herself, and to think that she was violated by somebody as icky as Ian, or not Ian, but Lionel, was just. I still have Ian on my mind as Lionel.
Now, if it were
was
Ian
just,
Senior,
was just it was pretty bad. And then I loved the end of the episode. I liked the Claire and Jamie together very much too, but I was deeply touched by the finishing song. And it has completely changed itself from what we've seen in the last seasons. But then it stopped, and the credits continued to roll, and all we could hear was rain. And what came to my mind was the RAINN, which is the National Rape Hotline. RAIN, it's called. And
that's why I just thought that.
I just thought, gosh, that is a singing to me that's what they're saying here, rain, rain, rain. And it was just quiet. And I just love that.
You guys both mentioned some things that I also really worked for me, but I will just say Katrina's performance, particularly going through defiance, and her defiant, like, spit in the eye of the tiger self, and then just getting broken, even when I thought, you idiot, when she's staring at him at the fire. Yeah. I thought, come on, Claire, you dumbass. You're completely, at his mercy. What are you doing? And, and then she's staring at him as he's taking her to the tree, and then, he just breaks her, not unlike Blackjack Randall. And then, and then she goes through that, and her cries, like when they cut her. I'm so auditory. The cry that she did when they cut her cry when she collapses in the hallway after trying to, resume her, this is who I am, and then she just can't do it. That mewing of brokenness and grief.
Can I say something about what you just said, Courtney?
Yeah. Sure.
I think it was worse that Hodgepile cut her on her breast.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's one of the most important parts for women, who defines who we are, and for him to cut her there, I think was extremely, it wasn't just a physical wound. I saw it as an emotional wound.
Well, I just felt like particularly all of it, just her, even with that scene by the river when he's saying they're back, and she's so shocked she can't show joy about Roger and Bree being back. She's just confused and so broken. And, you know, even though intellectually I know that's all makeup and all that stuff, Katrina really inhabited that. I thought she was, you know, spectacular. Lionel Brown.
Mm.
I mean, Ned Dennehy, I want to interview him, but I kind of don't, because I'm afraid he is like him, you know? I kind of like, what if he's like that and then he stalks me or something? I think he would be fascinating to interview about the role, and because he just talk about inhabiting that character.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and that voice, that creepy voice when he gets up to her and he's like, and you telling my wife to stay out of my bed, or he says it, but it's a whisper, and he comes closer and you know, he's just
because he doesn't want everybody to know he's not getting any.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
sure
that's
that
right. You
is
didn't
why
want
he
the men to
whispered it,
hear
but it
that.
was even creepier. In the book, Mrs. Bug smothers Lionel Brown. But Mrs. Bug showed up in one episode and we haven't really seen her since. So I was thinking, like, what? How's Mrs. Bug going to do this? So it really worked for me to have Marcelly do that. And, you know, Leary is her mom. So she could have a little, you know, wire.
The chip doesn't fall far from me.
Yeah, but what I liked about it is I could see her, because she's so loyal and she's so fierce and protective. And when she says to him, you know, you hurt my ma, you hurt my this and that, and you're never going to see you, I'll see you burn in hell before you hurt another member of my family. But I also really liked that afterwards she was freaked out and going, is he going to haunt me? Am I going to hell? That kept her in the period. It kept her from being like, I'm a badass, you know, which is a pet peeve of mine. I loved seeing Mercosta. And I really do think that Duncan's sleeping with someone in the wig department, because
I know, man.
Once again, he had another amazing wig. Yeah, and it really worked for me to see young Jamie again. I was like, Grandpa Jamie is hot, but man, young Jamie still looks really good in these.
Well, except for the rat's tail of a wig.
I thought the wig was better. I mean, that wasn't his season 4 wig.
No, did you notice that his was the only costume that was still period?
Yeah. Well,
it was modified slightly, though.
Except for Lionel Brown when he would show up.
Yeah.
One of the things that has worked for me in the whole of the season, and really worked in the finale, is that the ensemble really put on some good performances. I mean, Katrina was a clear standout, but I loved how strong everybody was in this finale. Even the ones who didn't have a lot to say were strong. You know, I couldn't see that nobody let the side down, you know? So the ensemble really worked for me in terms of everybody just bringing it. I've already talked about how the 60s stuff worked for me because of how it took me into Claire's mind. And I especially like that even in her escapism, Brown showed up at the window and at the table, so insidious, and at the door, you know, in the guise of the policeman. So, you know, those choices and how they wove them into the story really worked. I was speculating what they were going to use to justify or to explain why Lionel would want to take Claire. And I love how they wrapped that up. The Rollins thing threaded all the way through, and it made sense. It didn't feel cheap and unearned because it had been threaded all the way through, and it came to a satisfying conclusion because I believed him that would have been so very egregious to him that he could justify in his own mind, you know, grabbing Claire. I loved the makeup people were just phenomenal. When Claire is sitting in that bath, she doesn't even look like her.
Yeah.
She is disfigured. You could still see her hiding in there, but everything that she had been through was on her face physically. It wasn't just emotionally. Everything was there. And I'm going to echo Carmen here. I loved how they shot the battle scene. Now, I wanted a little bit more of it. That's one of the things that left me dissatisfied, because I was hoping that we would see a little bit more of Red Berserker, Red Jamie. I thought it was a bit attenuated, but what they did do was beautifully shot. And there are two particular shots. One of the Jamie character in the foreground, and all the stuff that was going around behind him in the background. I thought that was riveting. And then I love the shot of the three of them, John Quincy Miles, Fergus, and Ian, looking at Claire. I mean, the cinematography in this episode was stellar.
Yes,
It was. And Carmen, you said it, how they had, when Claire was being assaulted, and how they had the camera off kilter. I mean, there was so much attention to detail in this episode. Her world was off kilter. You know, everything was out of place, out of what, and we saw that from the camera angle too. You could see that they really, really tried to get it right. And so that attention to details really worked for me. That's one of the reasons why I said, you know, it was brilliantly done TV.
Just to bring up a point of discussion, since you kind of hit on it, both of you. In the book, Jamie, I mean, this is like, he just goes on a killing spree, basically. Yeah. The way they shot that is exactly how it's described in the book, as a lit by torch or firelight, and you see him pick someone up, I don't remember who it is. Hodgepile, and break his neck.
Yes, he snaps his neck.
And then is that before he finds Claire in the book?
No, I think it's at
after.
the time after he finds Claire, he gets Hodgepile.
Yeah, so I was thinking that maybe they thought, well, Jamie wouldn't leave her side once he found her. But I also missed that, you know, just seeing Jamie kind of go nuts on that group. Yeah. So what do you guys think about that? Do you think that's why they didn't film it that way?
I think it would have been too similar to the Forbes killing right after it, back to back. Okay. I think one of the things that I watching this episode, they showed certain things that I thought, oh, maybe that's why they left it out when it happened to Bree, because otherwise it would have just been too repetitious.
Yeah.
And so they saved it for this, which I felt was a better option, just in terms of acting, in terms of storyline and everything else.
I think that that they shifted it and made it more about Jamie and Claire's relationship than about Jamie as the berserker, even though I would have loved to seen him snap a few necks and, you know, do that. I think that they decided to focus on him attending to Claire instead. In the context of the book, it's understandable. But I think in the shortened TV version, it might have him come off as a bit callous.
Yeah,
if
to
they
just be
would
like, I'll be right back,
Yeah.
I'm going to kill somebody.
Yeah. Which she does to him a few times in the books, actually. She makes him wait, you know, when he needs attention. I'm not going to say which one from Moby, but there's a scene where she makes him wait. But I think in this instance, that would be my guess. I don't have any inside information about it, but they were worried about he might come off as being uncaring about her status.
Well, and just transitions too. It's like he comes and that's a big moment. You don't have him leave and then come back. That doesn't really work on film. So
I mean, the episode was too short. And as Carmen said, I think they wanted the focus to be on Claire because it was her trauma, her story.
Yeah.
And Jamie played his part as rescuer supporter, but the focus had to be on what she was going through. So
And that's why they brought in Fergus and Ian, because I don't think they do that in the book, right?
Well, they participate.
They participate, but they don't say.
Yeah,
He
Ian
says
says,
it's myself it kills for.
Ian says, and me as well.
Oh,
He
do
does say
they in
that
the book?
I think so.
Yes,
I'm not
Ian
sure
does.
it's at that point in the. I think it's at a different spot, but I believe he does say that.
He does say that. When our hands are the knife, yeah, Ian says that. And myself as well. Fergus doesn't say it, but Ian surely does echo Jamie.
Well, I'm glad they let Fergus do that instead of just making him the male Lizzie.
Yeah, but no. That was a nice little cameo for him. I really loved him in that little snippet.
Yeah. Okay, let's do least favorite scenes.
My least favorite scenes, the first time I watched it was the 60 flashbacks.
Oh.
I understood the idea of disassociation, but I felt that they did too many flashbacks and disassociations. They had her disassociating, then they had flashbacks to earlier scenes of what happened to her, then disassociating, then flashback, and it just seemed a little confusing to me. I mean, I like that we got to see everybody dressed in 60s clothes. And I guess I'm old enough to remember some of the music, which I hated at that time. Except the Jackson 5. I just didn't like it. I just didn't.
It seemed like so she was on the tree and she was remembering what happened to her and dissociating as she remembers. That's the way.
Yeah, but it felt choppy to me. I felt the editing and that just didn't work for me.
Okay,
it just didn't work. I understood it. I understood why they did it. I just didn't like it. Just like how some people didn't like. I really liked the retro, the black and white,
the silent movie stuff.
Yes,
in that episode with
Yeah.
Roger. I really liked that, but I could understand how people didn't. Well, for me, I didn't like this at all.
Got it.
I can understand why they did it, but I just like the costumes. That was it. I thought it was very artistically done in that regard. And the other thing that didn't work for me was the little, like the little moon things where they're trying to show us how much time had passed. They show us the slice of the moon, then they show a scene, then they show the full moon. So we're supposed to understand that this has been weeks.
I don't think I even caught that.
when Bree and because the first time they showed the moon, I was like, why are you showing us the moon? I mean, it just seemed so out of place. Then they showed the full moon. I was like, oh, okay, you're trying to tell us that time has passed. My question was whether that meant we were supposed to understand that Claire had been with them for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know, but to me, it didn't make sense. Oh, Donner's accent.
Not even Donner.
No, Donner's accent. Last episode, he got it. He just had one line. But after that, it was like, oh, sweetheart, are you Irish? Are you Welsh? Are you what? But you're clearly not American.
Yeah, it did jump around.
Oh, and the other thing that just got on my nerves. What's up with Roger and his soliloquies? I mean, it's like, come on, dude. He's always, there's a time for men to, and then there's a time for men. I'm like, oh, come on, really? Now? Well, now's not the time for you to start quoting, going
She's
off
a
on
professor.
Your little tangents. I know, but come on. It's like you just told that someone's been kidnapped that you know and you love. There's a time for this.
Men of blood.
For blood. I mean, like it's almost like someone like, I love that line in the book, so I gotta stick it in there. It's like, and even like the Jesus H. Roosevelt Christ, it just seemed like so out of context. It's not even how she's ever used it in any of the episodes. And then all of a sudden, she always says it out of frustration, not out of fear, not out of anger, just frustration. And it just seemed an odd time to say it just so that some dude could hear it.
I have to agree with Kathy. I did not care for Roger piping up at that point, and did you really mean that?
Yeah.
You called me a son of your house. Did you mean that? Then I'll stand by you. I mean, it was like, come on, they need to get on their horses and get going. So stop already. That was one I did. I'm not going to be too critical because I pretty much liked everything about this episode. But the other one that I really wasn't too fond was I couldn't understand why they stuck Tebby and Claire in the back of that wagon where he offers her bread. I didn't see the purpose of that because they didn't really do anything with Tebby other than him, offering to take her across the stream or agreeing to take her across the stream. But I just didn't think that added to the storyline for me. I did like the Tebby character though.
Yeah.
I thought he had an interesting mouth. Did you notice how his lips shaped his he kind of was able to bring it to a peak. That's actually a pretty complex muscle around here, around the mouth, and it was very interesting to me to watch how he forms his words.
We should talk about Tebby and anatomy and medical. No, I'm kidding. I didn't notice. I'll go back and look at Tebby's mouth.
Yeah, do.
My least favorite scene was watching when they were gonna ride off and go save Claire, watching those guys ride those horses so badly. It was just painful.
I saw that.
Did you
and
see
I said,
that?
Oh, I mean, Courtney must be doing her pieces.
Well, it's just like, they're gonna go and they're all like, I've never been on a horse before. I don't know. It didn't convey what they were trying to convey to me. Things that didn't work. Jemmy is a great actor, but he doesn't do well pretending to be asleep.
That was
He's
good.
so cute, though.
He is, but
He's so cute. And I thought, Catherine gets to see her favorite line again. I woke up.
Yeah.
And then, I was able to hear what he said after that. He said, I woke up. Am I done? And if you watched any of the BTS, they were laughing, saying that those twins were saying, I'm going to do one more acting and then I'm done. Because they just...
But the closed caption picked it up as Ma, Da. And also, I didn't even catch that because the closed caption caught it as something else.
Okay. They're driving the wagon home, which was being pulled by the Beardsley horse somehow. Even though Lionel had been on him at the raid. And I don't even think that's the horse that they showed up to the Stones with. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think so. I know they have a couple of those black horses. One of them is like full Frisian, and I think that's the one. But I thought it was a little hokey that they pulled up. Should we camp here? They're driving toward that, and then no one saw the fiery cross until Brianna says, Doll, let the cross. I mean, come on. They're driving toward that, in the wagon. Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
would that be a
Driving
place
through
that you would
trees,
camp
though.
either?
No, not white
Would you
out in the
camp in a
open.
spot like that?
No.
I don't think
No. Once again, I'd be like, wow, Ian's a really bad driver. He didn't even see the fiery cross. And they're all three facing that way, I don't know. I thought that was a little meh. And I said, kind of a long speech from Roger while they're getting ready to go get Claire.
Yeah.
That felt misplaced. And I actually felt that there were several places where they were trying to get lines in from the book. It felt like, this is our last episode. Let's get them all in. They felt forced, particularly with Jamie. They saddled him with quite a few of those lines that I feel like weighed down the dialogue in those moments, or just made it less flowing.
Less believable too.
Yeah, less authentic.
With
Although
Jamie?
some of them I think were
Yeah.
done that made him feel awkward, which in that situation he may have been awkward.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, let me give you an example. When he came up after Claire's bath, and she was sitting, and he went over and said, "I feel like I want to kill somebody or murder
Mhm.
somebody," and it didn't feel right there.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's a line in the book,
Yeah.
but in the context of that conversation and how they had been playing it up to then, and then the anger didn't match it, and then he just cut off, and so that felt like they just horned those words in.
Okay.
They
Yeah.
didn't fit.
But then kind of that awkwardness when he was talking, because you have to imagine he was probably trying to stuff down some major PTSD at that moment.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. Oh,
So
yeah.
it just seemed like he because Sam's acting is such that he can basically deliver any line in any way to make it believable.
Mhm.
So I almost wonder if it was intentional that he was
I think
supposed
it
to be
was.
awkward at that moment, just because it was just pulling up so much for him.
Mhm.
I didn't think of it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah, because even when he touches her hand and he says,
Mm-hmm.
"Is your oath so strong?" It's a little creepy to me. It's like, I don't like when people touch me lightly like that.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was hesitant.
I think
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
trying.
And
Yeah.
that's how you would feel, because
Yes.
you'd be like,
Exactly.
I want to reach out to you, but I'm afraid I
Mhm.
see you covering up and not wanting to be touched. But yeah,
agree
yes, I'm
with you,
agreeing
Courtney.
with you, Catherine. Maybe that's why.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, I agree that I think that he felt awkward. He didn't
Yeah.
know
Mhm.
quite what to do about the situation. He wanted to go kill somebody so that she could be relieved of her suffering, and that's not going to happen. She's got to work her way through it herself.
Yeah, but it's
Um,
kind of also weird that it's like, and Lionel? Yeah, he's downstairs tied up. I don't know. Like, just go kill Lionel.
Well, in the book, he does torture him a bit. Maybe torture's not the right word, but that's why Lionel says, "Please don't let your husband." That's from the
Husband
book
on you.
too. But that's
Yeah,
because
I want to see a little of that.
Yeah. 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 Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
Antoinette, what's your
Okay.
least favorite and what didn't work for you?
Okay, what didn't work for me was the whole Bree and Roger stuff. And one of the reasons it didn't work for me was that I was mad because the episode was so short, and then they devoted 5-10 minutes of this foolishness. Why didn't they just have them come freaking through on the last episode, and the next time we see them, they are back at the freaking ridge? All of that. Oh, we wake up. Oh, you didn't go. Blah, 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 blah. Let's go home, and we'll surprise them. And all that. I mean, I'm saying, what? Why?
That is, I have that question too. Why did they do that?
Why? It made no sense.
I
Knew
think they were
that
messing with the book readers.
Mm.
Honestly.
If they are messing with the book readers, all I want to say to them is fuck off. We don't need to be messed with, because we have this short finale, and
We
then we're
only
going to
have
waste
12
it.
episodes.
Exactly. We're going to waste it with this. And then it further compounded when he was there pontificating his stupid ass off when they were about to go and get Claire. And then when they come back, he's so much, and his man pain. Oh,
I
turn
knew
the
you were going to
light
hate that.
off.
Yeah.
I want to tell you about what happened to me. Fuck you, Roger. Nobody cares what happened to you.
Except for all the Roger fans and all the
I was
Sophie
going to say they're
fans.
quite
And
I don't
Bree.
care.
fancy.
Claire
Yeah.
was just gang raped. You think anybody wants to hear about how bad you felt because you had to kill a man? I just hated that. I'm sorry, but it just pissed me off, especially when I got to the end of the episode and I realized how short it was, and then I thought about all the time devoted to this. Ugh.
You have to compartmentalize like a
No,
MS
I don't.
and been able to be able to say, I shouldn't care that I killed someone because someone else got raped. I mean, that's just not a, that's, most people can't compartmentalize in that way,
Yeah,
to that extent.
No, but Kathy, I don't care how he feels.
That's
I don't give a damn.
She doesn't care if Roger feels that way. She doesn't want to see it.
Everybody would feel that way because that's one of the things that he has struggled with being back in the 18th century, because he keeps talking about you remember when he was talking about how they should be packing lunches and he's now off to war, and he wants to do something that doesn't involve shooting or stabbing people. Do you remember? So that has always been his conflict. Why do we need to hear him moan about it? Shut up, Roger.
Well, it was quick. They turned off the light. He said it, and it was over.
Even if it was 10 seconds, it was too long.
He's telling someone whose mother just got raped, who's also been raped, and she's probably going through her own PTSD thing. And
he's, let me tell
but you know,
you.
psychology wasn't well known at that time, so
no.
Well, I do. You know, I did think as I was watching this, I thought, I think I agree with Antoinette. Show Roger is selfish. He's just a little self-absorbed. That's really,
I think that's a better word.
Yeah.
And he's not really in the books.
No.
I don't see that in the books at all.
I really, really like Book Roger.
Yeah.
And TV Roger, I mean, I think they came a long way in redeeming TV Roger in season 5. But then they would throw in these bits which just make him seem like such a prick. And that every time I got to like him, then he would do something that would just piss me off.
Yeah.
And
Could you be a little more explicit, Antoinette?
Can I just say this, Antoinette? The scene where Bree comes back, and he says the line, something like, what a horrible thing for a person.
That was a great line. That was actually one of my favorite
that's one of my
lines.
favorites. Yeah.
That scene was beautiful because he was looking at her and he was getting, she had to do this. She's been through it. He was able to see her by looking at Claire. That scene, I think, is maybe their best scene ever.
One of my favorite lines. And then they went and ruined it.
Bree has never talked to him about what's going on. And so he's just saying, basically, I understand now.
Yeah. That all came across without,
I thought, actually, that was
right
probably
there.
one of their best, like I agree, their best scenes.
Yeah.
They need to do something for us to invest in their relationship. Otherwise, it's going to get pretty damn boring.
I mean, I don't mind Roger and Bree. And that was a moment where there was a connection. It was really,
it was
really
sweet.
good. Yeah.
It was really
Anyway,
good.
sorry. You were saying your least favorite scenes and what didn't work for you, Antoinette.
Who the hell is Tebby supposed to be? I don't know what the hell that accent was. Was it supposed to be a Carolina accent, like a Gullah accent? Was it supposed to be some kind of fucked up Caribbean accent? Because nobody in the Caribbean talks like that. I don't know where am I get this from. Nobody in the Caribbean talk like that. If they're going to do Caribbean accents, hire Caribbean people. Lots of Caribbean people are in England and Scotland. Stop doing it. I hate it. So that the whole Teddy thing, and I agree with Carmen, sticking him in there, where they just stick him in with Claire, the thing, just so that we could hear this funky accent. Why?
It's because
need mouth muscles.
They got rid of Phaedra. We lost Ulysses. We lost Dr.
So they had to token black man.
Right. So they had to give us something else.
So we had to have a token person of color.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
Wow.
Well, you know how I feel about that.
You know I'm joking, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Sort of.
I'm not so sure.
No, really. No, I am.
I know you're joking, but I'm not so sure your point is off the mark. That's
Oh, okay.
That's what I was
one of my pet peeves is the little things that they mess up.
Yeah.
Which detract from overall an excellent episode. It just irks me, some of these little stupid things that they just leave in. One of those was something that, who brought it up? You, Courtney. Oh, down at the cross. For fuck's sake, you're riding all the way and it's flat all around you. You never saw the cross before? What the hell? Who thought that made sense? That made absolutely no sense. And
I
that's
got the
why
impression it wasn't right in front of them, though. It was off to their right.
Yeah, I thought it was they had been coming through trees.
They
And
had.
then they
but there
came
were
out
no
into the
Yeah,
trees.
but they're in the open when you know
Did y'all see
they're
any? Thank you.
parking.
They're
to the
facing
right.
this way, and the burning was off
That's
Oh,
right.
way.
okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
so, but are you telling me
No.
that like men are trained to see things moving across their vision and it just yeah.
It didn't make any sense.
I think
That
Ian
Bree
or
should see
Roger
it
would've-
first. You
yeah.
mean?
And she was standing up on the
Well, she was the first
wagon?
person facing that direction.
Yeah.
They were riding in that direction.
No, they were going
weren't.
this direction,
No.
and the thing was off that
Anyway.
way.
It's 90 degrees from, almost
At
90
least
degrees
other
from them.
favorite
Yeah,
scene-
I'm sure nobody ever turned their head when they saw a flame over there. I mean, it just
Well, it was
At
getting
least-
dark. They probably didn't notice it because it was starting to get dark, and then they saw the flame because it was dark.
Yeah, you're an apologist. Get away with you.
She's not
Yes.
having it.
Yeah, my least other favorite scenes was extraordinarily the 60s stuff, even though I liked it.
oh
Even though it took me into Claire's disassociation, I thought they overdid it. I thought that there were too many flashes in and out. I thought that after a while it began to lose its effect on me personally. You know, so that and so that there came a point when I said, you know what, I want this to be over now. It's like things that they've done in the past where they have something good and they just overindulge.
yeah.
It was good, but up to a point where for me it lost me because I got the point. I got where she was, I got why she was doing it, and I got why this was a clever way for them to focus on her and not the violence that she was being subjected to. But it doesn't take 4 or 5 flashbacks to that for us to get it as an audience. We're an intelligent audience.
Yeah.
Better than Roger's 11. I wish he had a dissociated fantasy. So we
You
have
know?
to-
Yeah, I
Well,
like
so
that way.
So in a weird way, the
Just
60s
too
stuff
many,
worked
I'm
and
saying,
didn't
Catherine.
work.
Oh, okay.
Too many.
Okay.
And the
So what was the dripping water
Well,
about?
let's come back to that. Why
Yeah,
don't we?
we'll do that.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to things that you noticed, Catherine.
Things that I noticed. One of the things I noticed is I liked the way that they filmed the scene from Claire's perspective when the men came in to the camp. That they showed like they were filming from the ground, and it basically was how she was seeing it. I thought that was really brilliant. Again, the connections between prior episodes and this episode. The other things I noticed was how she and Bree both were thinking on their feet in a time of crisis. It's like, I need to survive this now, so I need to think.
Yeah.
Claire was trying to use her the thought that she was a witch against the people she was with, and Bree used something else, but I thought that she was embracing that witch mentality of, okay, you think I'm a witch, all right, I'm going to play that up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why she was staring at
what's his face,
Lionel Brown, was like, okay, I'm putting juju eyes on you. The other thing I noticed was, and I thought was interesting, which I'm glad they brought in from the book, that what's his name, Donner, why he recognized that she was probably not of this time because of her lack of fear. And even though there's been a lot of discussion about how Scottish women weren't afraid of men, but at that time in America, based on who he was around, because he was around the Browns, who were extremely misogynistic, that more than likely the women that he saw around the men he was around were afraid of the men that they were with. And so I thought that was interesting. But then I also noticed that they countered that with a lot of real female strength. Yeah. Not this, barking orders type stuff that they like to use before. Yeah.
Carmen, did you
I have
let's skip you. You didn't notice anything, did you?
No, I want to hear about all the Easter eggs.
I want to
Yep.
know where Kezzy is.
Oh, yeah.
He went with them, but we didn't see him.
No.
No, actually,
He
was
shot. They
there.
showed him shooting. They showed him shooting.
Josiah. That was Josiah. Where's
Oh,
Oh,
that's right.
Where's Kezzy?
He's
I'm
been
saying.
lazy.
He's still recovering from his tonsillectomy.
I
He's in
see
the back
that.
shed with somebody else.
I noticed that Claire got her syringe that she ordered in Wilmington, so she had it.
Oh,
But one of the
was
things
it glass? Was it all
yeah,
glass?
yeah, and
Okay.
metal. No, it was glass and metal.
Okay.
What Marcelly used. I would like to know why she said to Marcelly when she went into her surgery, prepare the comfrey tea and steep the comfrey and prepare the syringe. What did she have in mind doing with that syringe, I wonder? Because I'm sure she wasn't going to administer the hemlock juice.
No. Well,
To him.
can you administer the comfrey somehow?
I don't think so.
Penicillin.
No. No,
Oh,
I
maybe
think she was still
penicillin.
trying to
brewing.
decide how she was going to kill him, and then
be.
at the last minute she decided I
Oh.
can't
She
do
wasn't
it.
going to do it. She
because
can't do it.
it would have been easy to give him like an air embolism,
Yeah.
and and instead,
Yeah,
and she
which-
picked up the knife, and then she just said, "I'm not doing it."
Did you hear the term hedge whore?
Yes.
Yes.
I thought, what the heck is that? I never
Yeah.
heard that term before. Well,
Well,
it
she was
turns out
tied up to a hedge, isn't she?
no.
A tree.
It's an old name for a cheap prostitute, one that will lie under any tree or hedge for whatever she will get paid. And it was in a 1811 dictionary of the vulgar tongue written by Captain Francis Gross. I looked it up because I didn't know what a hedge whore was.
What a good name.
Wow.
Francis Gross. Yes, there's a little bit of nominative determinism there, isn't there? I would like to know what Claire meant when she said, I am glad the others are dead. I'm sorry that I am.
No.
No, she's sorry
She-
that she wishes she's glad that the others are dead.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what she's sorry that she feels that way.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm glad they're dead, and I'm sorry that
that was awkward.
and I'm sorry that I am, because she feels like she's violating her oath.
Yeah.
That
as
was
a
in the book
doctor.
too.
Yeah.
That was in the book.
Well,
That's,
I don't know.
I
That
just think
the way,
that sensibility was in the book where she felt
Yeah.
guilty for
Yeah, I agree.
rejoicing in the
Yes.
fact that they were dead.
Right. Yeah.
yes,
Although
but
I think they romanticize this whole, do no harm, no death.
yeah, I
stuff
think
of
it was a little
politicians.
bit.
Yeah.
It was a little
Yeah.
over the top. I would like to say some things about Ian's uniform.
Mhm.
Did you see on his left sleeve that he had a red patch with a gold Native American figure with a bonnet on his head?
I missed it.
That was an insignia of the Native American. That was a callback to his to the Mohawk. He also has 2 chevrons on his left sleeve, which says that he's a corporal. His wampum beads across the top were where campaign ribbons would normally go, but they used his bracelet there as those ribbons. He wore an insignia that was crossed rifle, which means he's in the infantry. And then he wore one where there's a musket on a blue field, which shows that he's been in combat infantry. Then he had another one that was a bullseye with a wreath around it, and with 2 insignia hanging below it. That means that that's a distinguished marksman. And one of the things that dangles from it is for riflery, and the next one is for pistol expertise with the use of a pistol. His blue braid over his right shoulder is an honor braid. And then he had an inkle badge on his hat that indicates that he's an enlisted man and a non-commissioned officer.
Wow.
Wow.
Carmen,
There was
this
a lot
is
of
why
stuff
I
on
love
that.
you.
Yeah. Aside from the fact that researched and know all that stuff, that's a lot of mixed things.
Yes. And
Okay.
But
I
that's the
thought,
detail that Antoinette talks about.
yes, and I thought that
Well,
they did a
except for
lovely job of creating this, because he, I saw the comparison between Claire seeing him as a warrior, as an army, a person in the army, a soldier,
yeah.
because he came back as a warrior, and that was
Mhm.
her interpretation from the 60s point of view. And I thought that they went to a lot of trouble to try to recreate something that would, be representative of who he might have been and was in
But
her mind.
and also the way dreams, how things just appear, it's probably a mix of what she saw in her war, being a nurse in the war,
Oh, in the
Could
war.
well,
instead
yeah,
of
but
being
that was
like
British.
these are all his things.
Yeah, but she was in the British Army. These were, he's got a U.S. Army
Yeah, but I'm
uniform
sure
on.
she came across US
Yeah,
people,
she
because
did.
remember you remember in Je suis prêt, and she was with her PTSD. It was two Yanks
Yeah,
that she was talking to.
That's true.
She would
That's
have
true.
seen all of that,
She would have
and
seen all of that.
that's very dreamlike to have them all just mixed on there, not
Yeah.
really
That's
meaning
true.
anything. And the other thing I noticed about Ian was that he was the pre-Mohawk Ian. He had on the uniform, but he was like the bouncy, smiley
Happy,
Ian.
smiley.
Yeah.
Although
But
he still had the hair. His hair was
the
still
Mohawk
Mohawk.
hair.
He did, but his personality didn't
Yes,
have
that's
that.
yes.
So it's just like there was the young Jamie. You know how dreams do that, where people show up
Yes.
and they're different
Yes.
ages, and it doesn't really make
Mhm.
sense.
Yep.
He showed up as she remembers him,
Yeah.
as she sees him.
Right.
Yes. She did it with her own husband. I mean, she went back to young Jamie in some ways, and resurrected him in her disassociative state. So
Even though she was like 60s pre-Ridge Claire
Mm-hmm.
yes,
in her own
she
dream.
did it with her
Yeah.
herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jocasta could see.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So,
Fergus had
has
both
both hands.
but did you notice how, I mean, Maria is so young looking. She actually looks younger than her age.
Yeah.
And when she's Jocasta, she really embodies that, but it's like her body doesn't even look the same. Do they put padding on her or something?
I
You
don't know.
think?
Maybe.
Because
Maybe
it's
they
like
do.
she or maybe they just dress her in a way that makes her look larger than she is. But
Well,
she
she's
really
she's little, so that's easy.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like,
She's
But
not
she
very
really
tall.
just does not look. I mean, the way
Anything.
she transforms into Jocasta is just,
This is
and
true.
then transformed as a young Jocasta in the 60s,
Yes.
still didn't look like Maria at all.
right. And looked in between Stagecoach Jocasta that we saw in the one episode, and older Jocasta, and then she looked, in between.
I'm not going to go through all the Easter eggs, but I noticed those are the
Why not?
almost 30 that I found. Oh, because you don't want to hear all of them.
Well, you could just list them.
Well, the sunburst clock was from the Perpetual Adoration.
Mm-hmm.
There was the painting of the house that was the big house on the ridge. And some people think they saw fire on the side of it. And I can see what they're talking about. There's red and black patches on it.
Interesting.
The 60s house that they were in, actually looks like the magazine, the one that's on the front of the magazine that she picked up in Perpetual Adoration. The red dress and shoes mimicked her red dress and shoes at the court of the French court. Ian's hair, which we already mentioned, that it was Mohawk-like in both instances. His warrior uniform. Jamie's hair went back to the gathering when he was putting on his.
Try to go back.
Yeah, and his sark, his modified sark. His belted leather jacket that he came in and took off, that was very similar to the one that he was riding into Brownsville in. If you go back and look at it, it's quite similar. Fergus's left hand, there's an ashtray, and that reminded me of the one that she threw at Frank in episode 301. The leaky ceiling reminded me of the dripping at Beasley's from the ceiling, the icky stuff that came through the roof.
Yeah.
The microscope, she's been using that all this time. The vase is very similar to the vase that she saw in episode 1. The dragonfly, the gift from Hugh Monroe. The bunny, which we've already talked about. The orange, which she picked up from the king, and walked out with it. The family meal, which reminded me of the meal that they shared in the Deep's Heart's Core, and also Journey Cake, which they just did, the family gathering around. There's a mold of a bison or a buffalo that is sitting on as she gets up and walks toward the pile of wood by the fireplace. There's a statue of a buffalo, so that reminded me of the bison in 501. The bulletin board, there were bulletin boards throughout a lot of the episodes in there, but 213 is one. The military cap that was Ian's, that sat on the side thing. She and Frank both wore a military cap like that back in 103. The wallpaper and tapestry that on one of the walls was very similar to that in Lollybrock. And the wood pile is that you saw when she was walking away, that wood pile by the stove. There's one at the great big house on the side of it. And finally, there's a wall of stonework that looks very similar to Wentworth, and that looks very similar to Ardsmuir, that looks very similar to Castle Leoch.
Well, so, damn, Carmen.
Those are ones I found.
You have to understand, we're talking to someone who has dissected out every nerve of the body.
Yes.
So there's no detail that is going to be left unturned.
That's too small.
It's awesome. Carmen, did you say the typewriter?
I did, but I couldn't place it. And I also saw the TV set. They watched the TV, The Man on the Moon and Walking on the Moon. Bree did with Dr. Abernathy's family, but I don't think we saw that. And I don't remember seeing
it was in season 3. It's in the doldrums when they were on the thing and looking back. And I think she flashed back to that. Either it was that, or it was in one of the episodes when she was actually in the 60s. But they were all in a doctor's lounge looking up at the TV.
I think it was the one where Whiskey and Freedom, I think is what it's in, but I could be wrong.
Oh, 305?
Yeah, I think it was 305 that it was.
You all remember these? I'm such a terrible Outlander fan. I don't remember the names of the episodes.
You just
don't remember the names of anything. The names of the actors.
I think it's a function of Carmen's profession and a function of what I do. I spend days
I remember
reading case files and trying to pick out details and reading autopsy reports and trying to parse out the smallest detail that I think might help, my case. So
I feel like I noticed a couple of things. Oh, my auditory self. There's when they're at dinner, there's a little conversation happening, and Jamie says they're talking about what they're going to name the new Fursali baby. And Jamie says, Jamie is far better. No, it's got to be Ian. We're thinking of something a bit more hip, like Ringo. And then there's...
Oh, at the dinner, okay.
And then there's something else said, and I could not understand it. Did you guys get that?
No.
It's like, it says something like Jocasta passed the meat or something. I don't know.
I'll have to turn on.
I looked at the closed captions and I didn't see that.
Well, it told you that Jemmy said ma da or whatever. So
yeah, I know. They did talk about the sweet potatoes in a plate and something that Marsley was talking about.
Marsley, did you see her push Jamie out of the way?
Yeah, that looked like it was like a Oops, are we gonna have to? Am I grabbing your crotch? Nope. Let's keep going with the scene. Did you guys notice that?
No, I didn't. I have to look again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was funny.
she's going to get the sweet potatoes, and she pushes him out of the way.
But then she kind of is like, "Ooh, what?" And he's kind of like, "Yeah, it's all good. It's funny." The dripping ceiling, Meryl said in the maybe on Twitter that it's her current situation seeping through. But several people said it's a callback to the Beardsleys. Yeah.
But it's also it could also be a callback to when Jamie repaired the leak in the ceiling on the roof of their first cabin. Remember, he goes out with
Did he do that in the show?
It didn't do that in the show.
Oh,
no.
okay.
It was for those people that are book readers. They were pulling in things that were out of text. They were from the book, but not filmed.
Not in the show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that's how I interpreted it. Was what Meryl said.
Right. I noticed everyone had red shoes on, but Ian and Jamie, when they showed
I did not notice
the
that.
view of everyone's feet under the table.
Didn't Marcy have on yellow boots or white boots?
I thought she had on kind of go-go girl
Well,
boots.
everyone I could see from the back.
Oh.
And Jocasta may have had pink boots on, but it looked like everyone had red boots, even Murtaugh, yeah.
I have to look
with
up
his
on that.
yellow.
I'm surprised
suit.
they didn't put Lord John Grey in there because they
You
like
know?
sticking him everywhere.
By that time, he probably had pissed off back to Australia.
Yeah.
Later when Germain runs in, Murtaugh says, "It's Preston Pan all over again," which is interesting. What do you think that is? Just a crazy thing that gets stuck.
That's a crazy thing.
I think she's just kind of pulling in from all her lives.
Yeah.
And she's just kind of throwing stuff in there. She's disassociating, and there's no rhyme or reason.
There's no
to that.
rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The police officers, as you know, were Lionel Brown and, as Carmen named him last discussion, Hodgepodge.
Hodgepile.
I love that. I felt like
decoupage.
I felt like that the when Hodgepodge and Lionel Brown were at the door as police officers, and they tell that Roger and Bree have been in a car accident, which is a throwback actually to her parents of how they died. I felt that the bright light, Claire, is kind of backing up, or looks like she is, and everyone going forward is meant to be like dying or time traveling. As she's time traveling back, and all the people that are from the 18th century are moving past her. It's almost maybe like what she experiences when she goes through the stones.
The stones, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was too distracted by the whole thing.
I thought she was recoiling from that horror of the news. But
yeah. I did not think Lizzie looked pregnant in this episode.
She didn't. Nope.
Lizzie?
Yeah.
Wait, Lizzie?
Why is Lizzie supposed to be pregnant?
Lizzie said last discussion that Lizzie looked 3 months pregnant.
Okay.
When was Lizzie in this episode?
In one scene.
Yeah, she says,
"I've packed some salted meats for you."
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And then, did you guys notice she goes down the stairs and he says, "Thank you, Lizzie," and she goes,
"Yes."
Is she thrilled that himself is talking to her?
She's just horny as hell, and she just needs something.
Yeah, she is. She needs a maintenance man.
Yeah, she's yeah.
How about
Let's see. What?
2 is better than 1.
I said, how about 2?
Oh, spoiler.
Oh, I noticed that when Jamie picked up Claire to carry her to show her that everyone's dead, there was a scene break and they got better organized. Did you guys notice that? He was trying to cover her up as he picked her up, and it was kind of and then when it was like a break in the shot, and when they showed him again, she was all neatly wrapped and he was carrying. Anyway, I noticed that.
I noticed her boots though. Ooh, those were nice.
The ones that she had on.
Yeah, I
when he
liked
was
her
carrying
boots.
her. Oh my
Yeah, I
God.
liked her boots.
You. I think Hodgepile did a bad job of being dead. I thought I saw him breathing.
Especially when that hatchet got him right there.
Oh gosh, yeah, Ian, man.
It is a hard man for dead. That's like a song from my youth.
No more songs from you. I got Patty Bum Bum in my head for a week.
If
You
I
pick
did
him up,
go-
you lick him, dog, he bounce right back. What a hard man for dead.
No.
Richard Rankin is very convincing as being startled awake.
What?
When he's asleep in the chair and Bree walks in.
Oh, okay.
He is definitely good startle awake.
Maybe he was asleep.
Did you guys notice that Claire had a lisp after being beaten?
Yes.
Yeah.
That I'm saving that for the medical.
Oh, okay, sorry. When Jamie rides into Brownsville, that first woman we see looks like she's wearing a Mackenzie or a Fraser tartan. Did you see that?
Yes.
Do you think there's something to that, or is it just sort of coincidence? Yeah, and I thought that was a cool scene, but why did Jamie leave the horse there?
It was his. It was Lionel's. They probably took it and they left it.
Yeah, they probably.
Well, it was meant to be Lionel's.
Okay.
And so
all
if
right.
he's going to honor him and be a man of honor.
Yeah, because Lionel was right. Was he riding the Beardsley's horse before?
Yeah. So they left the less
They need to pay more attention to the horses.
They left a less expensive horse. I'm just going to say that. Sam's voice register went very low when he was talking to Richard Brown. Did you guys hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What did you guys think of the Jamie voiceover that they added at the end?
At the end, when?
Yeah, when he was talking
When he
about
said he's lived through war and
Oh. I thought it was actually, did you notice it paralleled what Claire said?
Yeah. I was good with it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought whoever groomed his horse did a really beautiful job on its tail and mane. My gosh.
His white horse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looked like
And
silk.
I also thought it was a poem of some type. I mean, I don't think it was supposed to have been. And the fact that he was quoting, Greek mythology and all the rest.
As much. I don't know what it was. It's like
there was a poem. Robert Frost was quoted by Bree.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he did what was it, Thucydides or somebody?
Yeah, but that was
yeah.
to Claire, yeah.
The
road less traveled.
And just a comment from
road not taken
discussion.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Catherine, I'm very impressed. Well, that you were saying that it bothered you when Katrina was riding, because she was trying to get the horse to go with her seat.
Yeah.
That particular scene is because they were riding together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure her horse is slower, and or else the other horse puts their ears back, and her horse is like, I'm not getting up there.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to make a horse go with your legs, not your seat.
Yeah.
And the fact that you don't ride much, and you know that because really experienced riders use their seats sometimes. But really it should be the legs, because when you use a seat, it actually throws the horse a little off balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Antoinette, what did you notice?
Where did that other bit of tartan come from that Jamie wrapped Claire in?
I think, was he wearing it?
Well,
see where he had it on.
What do you call that thing? His charade?
His plaid.
His plaid, yeah.
He had on his plaid. But when he was at the
Erisad.
Erisad. That's the one I was thinking.
Where does it come? Because when he first comes to her, because normally that is up above the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
He didn't have that bit above the shoulder. So where was it? Was it wrapped around it? It looked like he just had on the bottom bit. Then all of a sudden, magically this other bit of plaid just appears. So I was saying, what the hell? Where did he have it? Stuck up his butt? I don't know. Well, aside from I've already spoken about the weird accent that what's his face had. That was something that I noticed.
Kebe.
What part of the
Kebe.
Caribbean is he from?
From the behind part.
Well, maybe his accent softened a little because he's been in the colonies.
No.
I don't know.
And
Well, we're going to do medical anatomical next.
Okay. So what I noticed is that Outlander producers, whoever it is, I don't know who they consult, but the DSM-4 or DSM-5 actually now, they have down pat. And basically what that is it's a psychiatric diagnoses and the symptoms of any diagnostic and any psychiatric diagnosis. I don't know who they consult, but they have it down. The PTSD, the disassociation, the different types of madness, the different types, the narcissism, they just really have it well written. And I'm just so impressed by it. And in this episode, they really played on it quite a bit. Even the minor stuff, like when Bree was interacting with Claire, in a situation where Claire's scrubbing and she's obviously in trauma and she's obviously in pain, and Brianna gets up and leaves at a moment where you think that she would become more protective rather than less protective. It was very clear that they were both suffering from the same thing, just more of a distance, but the same.
I wondered why I thought that's weird.
I think it's because when she saw her scrubbing, she knew this is the point where she needs to be alone. She's trying to cleanse herself and she doesn't want to be touched. So I'm going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Even the narcissism in the Lionels, perfectly written. A physician assessing herself. She was kind of like going through all the parts, trying to figure out if everything was okay. And her touching her nose, touching her face, checking to make sure, trying to decide if her cheek was fractured, trying to decide if her nose was broken. After she had been trying to scrub. So in her mind, psychology wasn't well established at the time that she was trained.
That's right.
But I'm sure she was aware that she was reacting and she needed to understand why she was reacting and didn't. And so she reverted back to what she knew, and that was assessment. And that is pretty much what doctors do to compartmentalize. You just kind of go back to your training and figure out what's what. And she was a surgeon, so she understood physiology. She understood, anatomy. And so she was checking. And that was actually very realistic. The fact they had her nose bleeding so profusely is what happens when you break your nose, when the nose is broken. The fact that she was wheezing was very realistic because her mouth was covered. She couldn't breathe through her nose. It was probably filled with blood, so she had to breathe through her mouth. So with the rag stuffed in her mouth, it would have come out as wheezing. And she was probably draining down her throat. So she was probably trying to breathe through all this blood coming from her nose being broken. Her inability to kill. Some of that, I feel like they romanticize this do no harm thing, but that's bullshit. Wow. Plain and simple. There's no amount of Hippocratic oath that would stop me from killing somebody if I felt I needed to. It's this romantic idea that doctors are so in tune with the fact that we have this oath that we cannot break is bullshit.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and I think it's bullshit for Claire in the book. She kills in the book.
She kills a lot of people.
Yeah, she's killed quite a few people.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why that, we've talked about that before where it seems to be below her, beneath her.
Yeah.
Does Claire ever kill anybody in the show?
Yeah.
No.
Oh no, I don't
Who
think
she
she
killed?
does in the show.
She didn't kill nobody
She
because
just people die in her hand, but
She
they
helped
don't
but
kill
necessarily kills them.
Dougal.
she helped kill Dougal. That's the only one. But at Wentworth, she was supposed to have killed somebody when they were fleeing.
Yeah.
At Preston Pan, she was supposed to have killed somebody too.
Mm-hmm.
In at the brothel, she was supposed to, wasn't she supposed to have killed
Yeah.
somebody?
Yeah.
So in the show,
Mm-hmm.
it's beneath her to
Yeah, in
kill.
the
Mhm.
show, she's
But in the
saving
books-
someone in the brothel.
Yeah.
But in the books, she's a murderess.
Yeah. I agree.
Well, and
She
I mean,
has her own lethal
it's
tendencies.
well, and she's like, and well, she did kill Colum, but there was a mercy
Mhm.
thing,
Mhm.
and in the show and in the book, but
But
it's
she
like,
didn't kill Mr. Menzies in the show, and
No.
she killed him in the books.
She euthanizes him.
right.
Yeah.
She's like Jamie. She has a code of honor. She has a code, and
Yeah.
and killing is not beneath her if it falls with it. If it's her family member, if it's
Yeah.
her life.
And
that's
I
in
agree
jeopardy.
with that, but that's her principle, not the fact that she's taken some oath as a physician.
Right.
I just find that to be disingenuous. Okay, they got the bruises right and the timing of the bruises, the coloring of them and how they changed, from, purple to yellow. So it kind of gave me an idea of how much time had passed. Like Marcelly's face was, for example, Claire's face. Oh, and the other thing was the injection into Lionel Brown's neck. Granted, the medic, what she put into him was toxic. However, it was probably just the actual pushing it into his carotid artery just gave him an embolus that caused him to die. Oh, it was just minor. But the syringe, when she held it up, and then the syringe, and she put it into his neck, it doubled in the amount that was in the syringe. And I don't know, Carmen, did you notice that?
I did, but I have something else to say about that too.
Okay, go ahead.
Why bother to flick out the air bubbles out of if you're going to kill somebody? You want that air embolism in there. It'll help. That's number one.
That's funny.
Number two, the reason why Claire has the lisp, and if you see when she's coming out of from the stream, she says, "Was there an Indian there?" You see, she's talking with her lower lip only.
Mhm.
That's because her whole upper lip is swollen. She can't really move it very much. And so that was very realistic how she was saying he was from the future like me. And her lip is still, her upper lip is still. And I thought that was very well done. In the book, she looks at her image in the stream. In the episode, she looks at her image in the mirror. In their bedroom, but when she's looking in the stream, she sees that her nose is broken, and she feels it, and then she pulls on it and straightens it out so that it will heal in place, and the blood just streams again from her nose because, as Kathy said, when you have a broken nose, it bleeds a
Like a
lot.
stuck
And I
pig.
just thought that all the swelling around her nose and around her lip was extremely well done. The only one that I had a complaint about, honestly, was the slash on her breast, and I thought that would have bled pretty profusely. It spread apart very wide, and it should have bled more under those circumstances. It wasn't a closed up, it stayed gaping. It's got a pretty big blood vessel that runs down the side of the breast. In fact, there's several, but there's a pretty big one that goes down the side of it, and I think it would have bled more. I agree, her bruises, the progression of the bruising that she experienced was just very, very well done. And the bruising on her thigh, and her back, and on her body where she had been kicked by, I think, by Lionel, those were very well. The color was perfect, spot on, that blue-yellow, green-yellow color that it gets later on as the macrophages are doing their work. And same with Marcelly's bruise on her face. You said that. It's very difficult to coerce a person to open their jaw if they don't want to. And he did it pretty easily. The masseters that hold the jaw closed are some of the strongest muscles in the body per area, cross-sectional area. And if you get your fingers in just the right place and press, it can hurt enough that you can do it. But it's not as easy to do as was shown.
Oh, you mean when Brown opened her mouth to
Push
stuff the
and
gag in?
stuff that
Okay.
nasty.
Yeah, usually
that
what people
dirty
do is
thing.
they close off their nose so that you
Yeah.
have to open your mouth to breathe. But even still, you
Yeah.
can breathe through your teeth.
And
Yeah.
can you imagine they stuffed that nasty thing in there? And that was a
Mhm.
big piece of cloth.
Yes,
And then
it
she was
was.
about
Exactly.
to cross the river.
Yeah.
Where did it go? Because when Donner came up and took the gag from her mouth, she didn't have that. She didn't have that in her mouth.
I
That
don't know.
sock or whatever it was, the
I didn't
hanky,
notice that.
probably a dirty hanky from his nose. Water hemlock is actually grows in a lot of places in the United States. It grows in Oregon, and it's poisonous to livestock, humans. It's a dangerous thing. And it kind of looks like Queen's Anne's lace. It's got little sprouts that come out with little white flowers on the ends of it, and it's a pretty nasty plant. I don't know if it kills as rapidly as what it was shown. I don't know about that. I did notice that when Jamie lifted Claire, that always worries me because, when they were on the boat scene back in Eye of the Storm, he swings her around, he picks her up and swings her around, and I thought, oh, God, his back. But when he picked her up this time, he did it a little differently, and I thought that anatomically it was much wiser, because when he draped her arm around him, which helped take some of the weight on his shoulders, and then if you'll notice, he squatted and then lifted with his legs more than just his back. I've seen him do it with just his back before, and I'm like, oh, don't, tell him not to do that, please. Somebody is probably John Balbosini has told him,
or
don't
he's
lift like that.
natural consequences have taught
Well,
him.
Katrina's not a small woman. I mean, in
No,
terms
she's
of height.
not.
Mhm.
The other
Yeah.
thing that I want to say is there's not very many American medical schools that use the Hippocratic Oath.
No.
They use the
No.
Oath of Geneva now. They do, and they have for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I agree with you, Catherine, about what you were saying. That you would take a life if you were in a situation where it needed to be done. I would too. And
hell yes.
Kill him.
I don't.
Mhm.
I
Shoot
wouldn't
him,
go
stab
looking
him.
for
No.
it.
You did mention two inconsistencies, and one of them is that the consistency is mentioned in prior episodes that if his nose had been broken, it would have bled like a stuck pig.
Yes.
And that
was from A.
that's
Malcolm.
actually what happened. But the other is, what I found really inconsistent was that she didn't wash when she was in the stream. She still had blood on her face when she got to Bree at the house, where I would have thought that the first thing she would have done when near water was trying to scrub then, not in the bathtub.
But you know what, Kathy? She obviously had scrubbed because she didn't have blood streaming down from her nose. I think she had, even though we didn't see it, I think she had washed, but she may not have been able to get everything or see. She couldn't really see. That was a fast running stream.
Plus, she was
It wasn't still water.
She was so in shock still in that scene. She was like almost paralyzed.
Yeah, she
Yeah.
was.
Having, treated, many rape victims who I've actually had to do rape kits on, almost invariably, they showered, they washed, they tried to scrub off what had happened to them. And so even if she hadn't washed her face, she would have scrubbed in that. I mean, as soon as she got in contact with water, she would have tried to scrub.
Okay.
I mean, that's what in my experience, that's what I've seen.
Okay. Well, maybe we're supposed to assume that,
What did you guys think of Lionel when he was raping her, where we could just see her body move? What did you think of that?
That was more effective than if they had actually showed it more graphically.
I agree.
I've listened to the interviews and the director together with all of them that collaborated said they wanted to focus more on what she was going through rather than what was being done to her.
Mm-hmm.
So, so the focus was not on the act itself, but on how it affected her. So I thought that was very clever. And of course, the camera angles and everything just fed into that.
Well, and it was so the way she played fighting off the nephew, and then that whole misfire, and then his brutality with her, because he punched her and kicked her before he raped her. And then he raped her and was like,
he tore her clothes.
Tore her clothes, and then as he was raping her, you could see her just glazing over.
Yes.
And just going inside and just, going away, basically.
He was angry because he said that she acted like she was a man.
Pretending to be a man.
How dare she do that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what did you think? There's been a lot of talk on Twitter about, and in some of the articles that I have read, about why they changed it. Because in the book, I think only one person actually raped her.
No.
Huh?
No, it was the young guy,
the pudgy guy.
Then it was an old a guy whose wife had died.
Right, Martha.
Kept calling her Margaret.
That one he was
the only one that penetrated her in the book.
Yeah.
I think there was somebody after him.
No,
I don't think so.
He was the only one that penetrated her in the book, and then in the show, I mean, she was gang raped.
Yes,
But she had to justify. They had to justify in the show him saying "kill them all."
Yeah.
Probably.
I think that it wouldn't have been. I think for television, because they didn't have all the multiple pages of explaining and kind of getting to that point, they had to give a reason.
Okay, I got you. Yeah, makes sense.
I think you're right. Yeah, when you saw those other guys just like coming over,
lining up.
Oh, yeah, it was awful. And I noticed that Claire had a broken blood vessels in her eye.
She had subconjunctival hemorrhage on both eyes.
Would that be from blows or from screaming or from blows?
From blows, and it would also suggest that the thing around her
ligature around her neck
was a lot tighter. However, when they showed the scene, it was loose enough that she could have slipped her head right out of it. I don't understand. Why would you try to untie something with your mouth when your hands are just, why not use your hands?
I think she was desperate. You know how desperate you get when you don't have air?
Yeah.
I mean, you do. Yeah. I mean, that is one of the worst feelings in the world.
Well, it seemed like that she could breathe okay as long as she didn't panic.
Well, I think she could have breathed okay if she put her head forward. Rather than,
which probably would have bothered her broken nose. Yeah.
Yeah. But all that blood draining down. I mean, the blood draining down. And then having
You're thinking of Jamie.
Just something stuffed in her mouth.
Yeah.
I think it was very realistic that they had her wheezing.
Yeah.
And I think, for Donner to put that back in her mouth after he took it off, what a relief, he was
a
piece of
complete shit. Little.
Yeah, he's disappeared, but maybe
he'll be back.
I don't know.
We'll be back with his accent.
Spoiler.
I will say that I will say that I think that when she did say Jesus H. Roosevelt Christ, his reaction was really good. It was very subtle. It was just a shift of the eyes, like, I thought
That
was
caught
really,
his attention.
yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that was well done. He didn't go or anything like
Yeah.
that. Lawyerly. What would these guys get in that day and age for abducting Claire and raping her and
Nothing.
hang it or what?
Mm-mm.
Nothing.
But the fact that she's married, wouldn't that make a difference?
No, I think it would be up to the family to get
That would be up.
justice.
That would be up to the family. That would be up to the family because you remember that women were seen as property, and there was no such thing as rape per se in the English common law, because it wasn't until way in the more modern times when a husband could be charged with raping his wife because he was her property to do with as he would.
Up until 1980.
Yeah,
God
exactly.
given.
So
1980?
Yes. It was a
What?
case in western part of the United States where a woman went to the Supreme Court because her husband had sex with her against her will, and she sued.
the only thing that Jamie could have probably sued them civilly. He could have probably sued them, taking out a civil action against them. I mean, if they had any such court structure, probably not in Williams Creek, but probably in New Bern, he could have sued them for what is called loss of consortium, because that is an old common law principle, whereby if you deprive a man of his conjugal rights, then he could sue you for loss of consortium.
And so Jamie could sue him for taking away his bedmate, you're saying?
Yeah.
Wow.
But
But then
wouldn't be
he could also,
charged.
if he killed them, he wouldn't be prosecuted though, right? Because they raped his wife. Isn't that right?
Well,
Yeah, what would he be what would he get for murdering everybody?
Well, I mean, they didn't murder anybody. They caught them in the act of abduction.
Yeah.
And they were armed men. They didn't kill unarmed men.
Okay.
So these men raided his property,
Yeah.
took his property. So he was within his rights to try and get back his property.
Meaning his
And
wife.
so if they were armed and he came upon them and they were the raiders who were taking his property, he would have been justified in using lethal force against them to take back his property.
Which is Claire.
Which is clear.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Marsley murdering
Well, I mean, that was murder. So,
that son of a bitch.
But
How would they prove it?
Exactly.
How would they prove it?
Without any witnesses. You know, there are no witnesses.
Jamie just took it on. He just said we killed them all.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which was true.
Which was true.
Yeah.
You know, so there was no witnesses.
He said I killed them all, I think.
Yeah.
Which is very Jamie.
Yes, I think he did say
Because he
I
would
killed them all.
He said I followed them and killed them all.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's
Jamie
right.
so Lionel just became one of the many that were killed that night, and instead of Marcelly murdering him.
What do you guys think of Richard Brown? Pretty interesting reaction. You know, he's like sad, and then he's like, yeah, thank you for bringing him, and I understand you did what you must, and then all of a sudden
I thought it was very much within his character, because you remember when Lionel was trying to take away the Morton guy, and he was the one that stopped them, because he's a law and order type, you know.
But what
is
he referring to?
See, I'm thinking he's referring to him doing what he must to protect those who are sympathetic to the crown. That's how I took it. Because
I don't think he cares about the crown. I think he's talking about. I think he uses that safety committee as a way to do what he wants.
Well, the safety committee, granted,
and Lionel really abused the safety committee by going.
Well, my thing is the safety committee is under the guise that they're protecting those loyal to the crown.
Right.
And Jamie has kind of made it clear that he's not of that mindset in terms of.
Okay.
And so that.
But does Brown know that? I guess so, because he was there.
Well, he said it to him.
He didn't join
I mean,
him.
he told him he wasn't going to do it.
He told Tryon.
It's all about ego. It's all about ego.
Yeah,
he told Tryon that.
No, he told.
I'm not going to be on your safety committee.
Yeah,
well,
but
he said, "I'll fight a war. Fighting a war is one thing,
But maintaining law and order is a
Is a
different
different
thing,
thing.
he said.
I don't think Jamie declared to Brown that he would not be on the side of the crown.
I don't
think
either.
Brown would have
No,
picked
No,
that up.
but when
I
the brother, when Lionel came with his wife with the broken arm,
Yeah.
he asked Jamie again, and Jamie said, "I've thought about it, and the answer is no. I'm not going to join your thing." And he said, "Well, I don't think my brother's going to be very happy about that," or something. I don't remember his exact words.
I mean,
but
they're just assholes who are just using an excuse to be assholes.
oh yeah,
That's
they're
what
brutal.
Brown
They're
meant.
brutal men, and
I
you know.
think that what Brown meant, Richard, is that I understand, I appreciate, and that sort of code of honor thing, but you know that I will avenge my brother. That was
Yes.
a threat.
That's what I was wondering about.
That's how I saw it. That's how I saw
you know,
it too.
I appreciate this. We are men of honor. I'm not gonna kill you, even though I could, because you had the brass balls to drive right up in here on your own without your men. So because there's this code of honor thing, fine. But you know that a reckoning is going to come.
Yeah.
That was a threat, and that
we'll
had nothing to do with crown or anything like that. It was just revenge.
What does it mean? Shoot twixt the wind and the water.
What do you think that meant? You
twixt the
haven't
wind
asked
and the
about
water.
lines.
Well,
Between the urethra and the
the
anus.
water is the vagina.
Oh, I didn't think about
No,
farts.
no.
I
The
was like,
water
what
is
he
the
talking about?
urethra. The wind is from the GI
Anus.
tract. Between,
Yeah,
the
anus.
anus. Between it would be where the vagina is.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't think about farts.
It was.
I was like,
It
what
was.
the hell is he talking about?
Oh,
Who
that
said
was
that?
just such a crude.
Lionel.
It was
He said that to
Lionel
his
said
To the
nephew.
nephew, yes.
Yeah.
I was wondering what that meant.
Was
But
it
he didn't
Cuddy?
even- he
His
didn't
name
even
is
get to that
Cuddy or
point.
Cully?
Yeah.
Cuddy?
Shoot twixt
Yeah.
the wind
Mhm.
and the water. I was like,
Yeah,
what?
that's what he was talking about. Shoot
Oh.
between where she pees and where she passes wind.
Yeah.
It's just gross. It was
Yeah.
a gross
Yeah.
thing to
Well,
say.
he's a gross dude anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he was just
Yeah.
I saw a thing with Katrina who she said, it was hard, but it was really hard on the guys
yeah.
I can
to
imagine.
play this role.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, any decent man would have had a difficulty doing that.
Okay, so in the book, Jamie, actually, they have sex very soon after this because Jamie wants to make sure his sperm went out over any of these other multiple people.
Or just that she would have some doubt as to whether
Yeah.
if she were to
in
get
case
pregnant.
she got pregnant.
Yeah,
He
and
wanted
I
to give her
remember
the gift of doubt. Yes.
I remember Claire being like, "Are you kidding me?" Right? Isn't she?
Diana posted that scene.
Oh, you know what?
That whole,
she
excerpt.
is very aggressive.
Mhm.
He's trying to be gentle with her. Do you remember? He's trying to be tender with her.
But when he first says,
Proposes it.
Sassenach, I hate to be insensitive, or he doesn't say those words, but
Yeah.
if there's a chance that you could still get pregnant, I need to do this. And she's like,
Yes.
And she's like, "What the fuck?"
yeah, she's like, are you kidding me? Like all in their speak, but
the other thing she did though, she made sure they both had a shot of penicillin before they did it.
Yes.
And they both got drunk because remember Jamie said, if you think either of us are going to be able to do this sober.
Yeah.
So
why do you think, so obviously the show did not try to tackle that.
Well, they kind of did because the closing scene it's obvious they've made love.
Yes, but it's obvious that Claire is the initiator because of the scene before when she says, "I love you." And then, he says, "Christ, you're a courageous thing."
A bravery.
They didn't.
It was suggested, which is another way of them showing that they're not spoon feeding us.
Yeah,
and so that was for the book readers who knew what really happened.
Yeah,
you think? Okay.
Yeah, I think
that was well done. I didn't think we needed to go there in the show.
I don't think so.
I don't need.
Favorite lines.
Oh, God.
Favorite lines.
Catherine, do you
Oh,
have some favorite lines?
I do.
Okay.
My first one is, I'm supposed to be shattered by this. Well, I won't be. That was the epitome to me of the culmination of all this damn feminism that they've been trying to shove down our throats for the last 5 seasons. That is real feminism to me. And I just felt that they got it right in that. And of course, Diana being the writer of many of those lines, to me, I think she's the ultimate feminist, to be honest. I don't know if she would describe herself as such.
She won't describe herself
No.
as a feminist. No.
Exactly. And I
Because
think
it's too
because
narrow. It's too
I
narrow a
think because
description.
the word has been bastardized.
Yes.
And that's the only reason. Because to
Yeah.
me, she is the epitome. Someone
I
who has
agree.
taken charge of her life, who's written books, who has a family structure where she was able to write, have someone support her to the point where she was able to write these books, is to me the ultimate of feminism. That's real feminism. Being a woman, being a wife, being a writer, being a researcher, being able to live to your full potential.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She supports her family. Remember in the books,
But she couldn't have written
Roger
those books
says-
without the support of her husband. That
Yeah.
is a partnership. If she had
Yeah.
been married to someone else, this wouldn't have happened. Outlander would not have happened.
No, especially because he's Jamie.
Well, not only that, but she wrote through the night. She would sleep. And he would take care of the children. And if he was the type of man who was like, no, that's not my role, this
Yeah.
never would have happened.
Right.
Either she would have divorced him and then written the books,
Or
or she would have stayed
intimidated
married
by
and
her
never,
success.
or never
I'm not.
written the book.
I'm not meaning to diminish Doug. What I was going to say is that in this book, The Fiery Cross, Roger is complaining to her because he doesn't know how he's going to provide for his family in that in the 18th century, because he doesn't have, I don't remember what it was, his skills or whatever. And she said that was foolishness. She said, I put food on this table every day. And she did by bartering and, you know, her skills for food and other things. And that was where I was going with that. I didn't mean to diminish his, I know that it's a true partnership with them and that he has supported her all the way. And imagine how many men would like their wife getting up and working in the middle of the night.
Exactly. And that's my point.
Know, and they've worked out
But my thing is this, he's as much of a feminist as she is.
Yeah, he.
I like it.
There's no way she could have done what she's done if she hadn't married a feminist also.
Yeah,
Right.
I think it's the word that bothers
Exactly.
people.
And I think, like I said, it's been bastardized.
Yeah.
And I think that's why many women who are in her position, or even in my position or in others, reject the name because it's become feminazis has become feminine.
Yeah.
Has become a feminist, and it's not the same thing.
Well, it's the same thing as like different types of religions.
Exactly. It's a choice.
Take over and they bastardize it, and then everybody's like, well, I'm not that, you know?
No, my thing is feminism simply means having a choice and being able to live out that choice. That's it. Period. As
being able to exercise your agency in life.
Exactly. As a woman or a man.
As a person.
Or that woman. Yeah. That's it. I felt that line and the way it was delivered, in the scene it was delivered, to me was the epitome of female strength. Whether feminism or not, it was female strength. The other quote that I liked was, "What a horrific combination of words for anyone to have to find within themselves and to utter to another being."
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And I felt that was very poignant in that he said it to Bree, and I don't know if she's ever described to him what happened to her with Bonnet.
Kind of, I get the impression she hasn't.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I thought as well.
And he's letting her off the hook there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think he's finally getting it.
Yeah.
He's finally getting it.
Yeah.
My other quote was, "You're alive, you are whole," which of course were the same words he spoke to Roger when he cut him down from the news. The other was, "Kill them all." It wasn't just the line, it was the look on his face, the way he delivered it. It wasn't like it was overwrought. It was just, solid, focused, kill them all.
Yeah. It would have been easy for that line to be so.
To be overdone. Sam Heughan is one of the most phenomenal actors I've ever watched in a series, in any television show ever. His acting is just absolutely phenomenal. I don't think I've watched a lot of movies. I watch a lot of television. I've watched a lot of art. I like art. I'm very focused on performance. I pay a lot of attention to facial expressions. Body language is my thing. He is simply phenomenal. And it just bothers the hell out of me that he does not get the recognition he deserves.
And my concern is that I think Katrina's going to get nominated for this episode. And I think Sam's going to get passed over for the whole season. And he's been
phenomenal,
so amazing this season. And
because
not only has he been phenomenal this season, he has elevated every single person who acts against him.
Yeah,
though,
and he
it's
just
not
does
just
that
that
in
he's
general.
good, but it's kind of like the person in a soccer team or a polo team, or who assists, and the person who makes the score
gets all the
point,
recognition.
it gets all the recognition, but it was the person who assisted them that got them there.
Yeah,
I feel like that's Sam.
I posted something on Twitter because I noticed that Star's PR went all out with the interviews, with the behind the scenes for this episode, and nothing about Sam. And it is only when Elle posted an article talking to him that we realized that he was also an integral part of the discussions that went into the finale. And I'm saying, where was that perspective? It was all Katrina.
The problem is, it's not a one or the other. They are phenomenal together. One of them would be nice, that they're good. The other one is good, but together they're larger than the sum of their parts. Yeah. And for them to only recognize one of them just doesn't make a lot of sense.
It's a personal thing. There's something going on there, and has been for a minute. I have my own theories about that.
It's jealousy.
Do you know
Sam is just no. This is the thing. He is simply too nice of a guy, and he's too damn good looking, and he's getting too much success, and it's just too much for most people.
I think it's also that limited, talking about feminism, it's that limited thinking that is not able to encompass two leads that are male and female and elevate them both. It's that
gotta be one or the other.
These are all female. Okay, they're gonna be focused on the lady, and so
But the thing is, though,
eye candy, and it's that simplistic.
But the thing is, Sam is the ultimate feminist as well.
Oh yeah,
yes.
And the reason is because,
and so is Jamie, by the way.
Jamie definitely.
Yeah.
But Sam is, and Jamie is, mainly because they allow the women around them shine. That, to me, is also as much feminism as the women shining in and of themselves.
But Sam doesn't feel the need to hide himself under a bushel basket or whatever that thing is from the Bible. He is willing to be shiny. He's such a generous soul that whole limited thinking probably is completely new to him anyway.
Yeah.
We are in an era where everything has to be over the top.
Yeah.
And so when you have someone who's subtle like Sam is,
if
you're simple-minded and you're not able to see subtlety, you miss most of what he does.
Exactly.
And for his line to say, kill them all, and the way he did it is so subtle. It's menacing in its subtlety.
Yeah.
that many people would miss
It
that
just will go right over their head.
if they're not empathetic, if they're
Yeah.
not very in tuned, if they're not aware of what it takes for a person to do what he does,
Yeah.
Yeah.
His
you miss
intensity
it.
in that scene, just
Exactly.
like the look in his eyes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's like his skin is stretched tighter over his skull. If you look
Exactly.
at
do
it,
that. You know what? If you look at him throughout that whole business, when he comes up to Claire,
Mhm.
when he, gathers the information, when he's speaking to her and so forth, if you look at his eyes are open wider than normal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that gives him that kind of fierce, sympathetic nervous system response that you would get
Exactly.
in that kind of in a situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is the kind of method actor, I think it's called, that he is, that enables him to go into a scene like that and feel what is actually happening and then project it to other people. And I agree with what you're saying. It looked like his skin was stretched tighter than usual over his face. And I think largely because his eyes were open wider, and he can do it without making himself look weird. If you look in the mirror and open your eyes wide, generally what happens is that your lids spread apart so that your whole iris shows, and that's not normal. He's doing something else. I don't know what he's doing with his facial muscles, but I swear he's got some really impressive muscles of facial expression.
Well, I think it's because it's emotionally driven, so it looks
yes, I think.
Authentic.
What bothers me the most, though, is when you really, really praise him for his acting, everyone reduces you to just a Sam fan.
Yeah.
I'm not a Sam fan. I am a talent fan.
Well,
Right.
I'm a
But
Jamie
really,
fan.
I'm a talent fan. I love talent. And
Yeah.
when people are good at what they do, I appreciate it. I don't care who it is. As Sam Heughan in and of himself, I can take him or leave him, except his talent. His talent is phenomenal, and you cannot deny it. And it pisses me off that it's not being recognized.
Carmen, did you have any favorite lines?
Well, I had most of the ones that Kathy chose too. I'll add in a couple of more. I thought the way he said, "It's myself that kills for her," and then as he was explaining to the men, I thought that was a good line. I liked "I kill them all" better, though.
Yeah.
I also liked "You are alive, you are whole, money and down," and I hadn't heard him say that to her for quite a while. It's been mostly Sassenach, but he went back to his love words from season one there. I liked, again, I like this, "I'm supposed to be shattered by this. Well, I won't be." I thought her speech before that, where she said, "I've lived through through a world war. I've lost 2 husbands. I've lost our child. And I've been imprisoned. I've been starved," and so forth. She did that extraordinarily well. Yeah. And that lead up made her subsequent comments that much more, it gave it that much more power, in my opinion, for her to say, "Well, I won't be." I also liked, well, I didn't like it, but I thought his sentence, "Telling women how to deceive their husbands, how to deny them their God-given rights, telling my wife to avoid my bed." And that's when he came up to her, and kind of whispered that in her face. Those are incredible lines, because in those 3 lines are encompassed a lot of the problems that exist between men and women on this planet. That is that whole attitude that we are property of our husbands. And that has been going on for a long time, and still does in many countries and many societies. In this country too.
Many marriages.
In the quietness of, behind the closed doors. it was just a little nutshell in those 3 sentences of what he was so furious at her about, because she was interfering with all those things that he wanted to stay the same. He didn't want that to change. And that's what bothers a lot of people now about feminism, is that it requires change, and they don't want to change. They want things to stay the same, and they want to deprive other people of the opportunity to change.
Yep.
I also thought the shoot between the wind and the water was an incredible line. It sucked. It was nasty, but I thought it was an incredible line. I don't know who thought that up, whether it was Tony or whether it was Matt, but it was.
I'm gonna guess Matt. I don't know.
See, I would
think
guess
that.
Tony.
I would have guessed Tony.
Yeah, maybe
too. I don't know. That's a good question. If we ever get a chance to ask.
I don't think a man would have felt comfortable writing that line.
I think I kind of would. I can't. Yeah.
Not a decent man. Anyway.
Yeah,
and I consider Matt he seems very decent.
He is a decent man, but he's writing this episode. And when you're a writer, you go into a different mind space. It's like being an actor.
But I think that when it comes to depicting women in a certain way, that women have more freedom than men do.
Yeah, possibly.
And I think that I don't think that his sensibility would have allowed him to overcome that in order to write that. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, if you remember, there's been some writer room talk at various things where they've been surprised that the women took a harsher attitude toward a woman than the men did.
Yeah, that's
and I think that's an example of that kind of thing playing out. Now, that's in a professional setting. In a private setting, it doesn't always work that way.
No. But I think also that women depicting what they think men are like would have allowed that level of crudeness that a man may not have been. It's sort of like you don't air your dirty laundry.
Yeah.
And I think that was an example of how women would have aired that more than men would have.
Interesting.
Now I want to know who wrote it. I had a lot of the same ones that Kathy and you had, and I'll just add in. So I'll just do Marsley's. She took an oath to do no harm, but I've taken no such oath. You hurt me. You hurt my family. You hurt my ma. I'll watch you burn in hell before I let you harm another soul in this house. And then Jamie's, I followed them. I killed them all. I brought you your brother. He's just so like matter of fact. And his voice, if you listen to that, the register in his voice is so low. I don't know how he got it that low, but for those lines.
He's changing the muscles that control his, that control his larynx, the cartilages of his larynx, and that can help lower the register.
Well, that's something men do when they talk to each other, and they are.
It's a growl. It's like the human equivalent to a growl.
Yeah. It's like I am the dominant one. The lower the voice goes.
The alpha male.
Because
it's the beating of the chest.
Yeah.
Well, not even that. We're wolves. I mean, we're pack animals, and we're wolves. If you were to equate humans to an animal, it would be wolves more than anything else.
Really?
Mm-hmm. We're pack animals, and we have alphas, we have betas, we have, we're wolves.
Y'all took my lines. So, I like that Roger line about, what combination of words to find. I like kill them all. I don't think y'all left any for me.
I'm so sorry.
I thought you were all going to leave me.
Wait, I know one.
The
Roger soliloquy is still open.
Remember the name Tebby. Remember Tebby was good to you.
No, I don't want to. No, Tebby. So y'all took
I meant the Roger soliloquy There's a time for man, for blood.
There's a time to shut the fuck up.
That
Okay.
part should have been left out. It really
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay.
I
Yeah.
did have one.
Me
I did
being
have
good
one.
to you, Claire. Yeah.
Me then go to you. Go ahead.
I did have one when they were standing by the railing. One of my favorite book lines.
Mm.
If my last words aren't "I love you," you'll ken that I didn't have time.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That's one of my favorite lines, and it felt right there. Didn't feel like it was horned in, and it wasn't over the top and flowery. It was just matter of fact, because it's true.
That's
I
the one
love
that her
delivery.
husband thought of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's probably why that line it resonates so much, just knowing that it was actually spoken in a real situation. It wasn't just
in
for
a
the
real
book.
relationship.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I thought that Katrina was really good in that scene on the
That scene.
porch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She looked 80 years old in that sweater. You know, she just looked like she'd been through hell.
Oh, she looks like she gathered a cocoon around her, you know,
Yeah.
with that quilted
The sweater.
Yeah.
sweater.
And Jamie's wig was a little distracting for me in that scene. Did you guys notice that?
No, I did. What I did notice though was that whole layered mentality, that there was a royal family, so to speak, of the Ridge. There were people working, except the people who are of royalty or who are, all the
family.
other people
The
with
overseers
were playing, and everyone else was working. And to me,
I did
that
think about that. Like, is this an ordinary day everyone's playing, or is it lunchtime or something? You know,
I thought that they were just playing and everyone else was just working, because they are the
royal
hierarchy
family
of the Ridge is that.
Well, she wouldn't be able to work.
Yeah,
She's going to be sore for a
but
while.
all the people in the yard, Marsley and
exactly.
Ian, and they were
most of them were playing.
Right.
Exactly.
So we were wondering,
but there were other people working though while they were playing.
So we were wondering why were they not working? Was it lunchtime or?
No, it's just because they are they're part of the upper echelon they're the upper echelon of the Ridge.
But they obviously do work. They dye things and they gut joint pigs and stuff like that. So,
but if they want to play while other people are working, they can.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Okay, big themes, Catherine.
My big theme here was resilience and the true strength of women. I felt that Jamie took his cue from Claire. Claire took her cue from her own fortitude and resilience and sense of strength. I felt that Marsley, I thought even Bree, in her ability to walk away when her mother needed her to, that's the true essence of who women are. We can handle pain, we can handle adversity, we can compartmentalize when we need to, and we can move on, but not ignore what's happening, just deal with it. And to me, that's what this was. It was just a true testament to a woman's strength.
Well, I'm pretty much on the same track as Catherine. I used the word endurance. Endurance to the end, persevering to the end. That I felt that in her dreamscape, when she was sitting in the chair, she was waiting for Jamie to come. That's what she was doing. She was sitting in the chair waiting for him to come. And that was a metaphor to me, that she was waiting for him to come and rescue her out of that situation that she found herself in, and she was able to hang on until he got there. To me, that's endurance. that she was
Mhm.
able to endure her pain and allow her healing to start happening, at least physically. It's going to take a while for the PTSD to get down, but that endurance I felt was really a core principle in this. And I thought that it was an interesting way of presenting how somebody might cope with trauma and abuse and loss. You know, when Lionel said to her, "You're not so high and mighty now, are you?" You know, as then he rapes her. Uh, she lost a lot. She's not a person who likes being helpless, for her power to be taken away from her, to be at the mercy of someone else to do with as they want to. She's fought against that from the very beginning of this entire story. And here she is in a situation where she has virtually no power at all, physical or whatever. And she copes with it by taking herself in another spot mentally. And I think that that is, all of that is, as Catherine said, this is the strength that she is presenting. And I agree. I think women are enormously strong and have a well inside of them that has a chance of being more balanced about life, that embraces life in a very important way. And I believe that a lot of that comes very early in women's life when they start menstruating and they start losing their own body's blood. I think that that is an important passage that they go through. And that is why I think women tend to be emotionally more mature than males of the same age, at least in part. I think endurance, coping with trauma and loss are threads, important, big themes of this episode, and the ability to deal with that as a woman.
There's this misconception that feminism means or the strength of women means you don't need a man. To me, I think it takes more strength to recognize that you can trust in someone to support you, to protect you, to be a partner with you. And to me, that actually speaks more to being the strength of women than just being completely on your own. That's all I
agree.
want to say.
I agree because that means that you are a person who opens yourself up to a lot of pain
and vulnerability, which takes strength.
Right. My take is I wrote, sometimes the way forward is to let go and go to pieces and let the love around you help put you back together.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that was a big theme, and that's hard for strong women like us and Claire. But to me, that was a big theme because Claire fought so hard, like in the scene that I talked about, you know, she's still looking at Lionel and she's holding on, and we see that whole process of her basically just being dismantled by him.
Yeah.
And even when she goes to her surgery and it's like, I'm Claire and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to do my stuff. And then she falls apart. And then I think at that point when she crumples and does that, you know, just crying that is just like it being turned inside out.
Oh, it's a gut wrenching.
That's, you know, where she has to just accept that she has been dismantled. And let go and let her family hold her up while she comes back together inside, you know. And we see that she starts back on that journey, and of course the first person is Jamie, that she wants to go back into that comfort of making love with him, which is that was one thing that occurred to me when she was being raped. Like, this is nothing like what she shares with her husband.
It's not an act of love.
No, well, it's not even it's not, you know, anatomically it happens in the same region, but it's just it's not alike at all. So that was a big theme for me, is really watching Claire be broken into pieces and coming to a place of surrender, which literally took a lot to make that happen, and then gradually coming back together through her own fortitude, but it's a softer fortitude, and the love around her. Yeah.
What I took away from it is how powerful our mind is. You know, a lot of people, when they sit down and they imagine the very worst thing that could possibly happen to them, and they think that if this thing happened to me, I will never get over it. I will never recover. And I think in this episode, we saw for a woman, what Claire went through was one of the worst things imaginable. And most people would think that if this thing happened to me, I would be shattered forever and I would never come back. And what the episode is showing me and what I got from it is that even when the very worst thing you think can happen does happen, it doesn't mean that you can never come back, that you can never recover. And where she started to fight back against what was happening to her was in her mind. She started to fight back in her mind by taking herself out of it and going to that place in her mind while she waited for Jamie to come. So the healing, the process of putting yourself back together starts in your mind. And when I say mind, I don't mean brain. I mean this. What I really mean is the soul, right? Not the intellectual mind. I mean the soul, because that was a soul journey she took into her dissociative state to guard her soul from what was happening, because they damaged her body, they penetrated her body, and to a large extent, they got into her soul. And in order for her to guard that soul, that essence of her, she went back into her mind to that place to try and put a fence around it. So even though they got to it, she was protecting that part of her. And then as she was able to be rescued and go home and be healed and surrounded by her family. You see, her family, when she was rescued, she could let down that guard because the love and the support of the family were what was then going to protect her soul until she could gather herself again. So that is what came across to me from the episode.
I think that hearing the person whom you love and trust the most on the face of the earth tell you that you're alive and you are whole would be a large part of that that journey.
Yeah.
Yes.
And she knows what he's been through.
Yes.
Well,
And
and she trusts him, and he's telling
Yes,
her
she
the truth, and she knows that.
Yeah.
And that just that grounding
Mhm.
that moment would be life-saving.
Very much so.
Because who knows how
Sanity
long...
saving.
Because you
Sanity
can't
saving.
say you don't understand what I've been through.
No.
Absolutely not.
No, she can't say that, nor could she say it to Bree.
Or
honestly,
Bree, or even
either.
Roger, though to a different degree, but even
and
Roger.
in a different way, but yeah.
All right, let's do standouts.
Even actually Ian as well.
Yeah, but you
Ian
don't know
was
what happened to
kidnapped.
Ian.
Ian was kidnapped.
Yeah.
Yes, and he was abused sexually too.
Right.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we only heard about it though. Thank God we didn't see it.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
He said he didn't want to really do that, but Jamie told him a cock didn't
have a conscience, but he did
Yeah, that's such a great
in
one.
401.
That's so Diana too.
Yeah.
Okay, standouts.
Standouts, Katrina. Oh, sorry. We're going in order. I'm
That's
fading.
Standout. Honestly, the standouts to me, apart from the acting, apart from everything else, because that's just very obvious, the damn paneled walls. I'm sorry. This time, those walls were just like bam.
They are beautiful. And the
walls,
wallpaper.
the floor. Oh, the wallpaper is hideous. But
I
the
know.
walls, the wood paneling, and the stain that matched the floors, that matched the stairs, that matched the floor going into the bedroom.
Tell me if you're experiencing endorphins right now.
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I am. I'm about to have an orgasm. No, but the thing is that, and then when Claire was against the wall, she had one hand against the wall, one hand on the floor, and she was just going down. It was like, I actually took a screenshot of that because it was so beautiful. I'm like, you know what? That's a painting. It was just amazing.
It was an amazing shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. And it was the first time we've seen that hallway.
Yeah.
And so
I noticed that hallway too. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. They just did a phenomenal job. I'm hoping that next season will be the equivalent of what's happened with the costume, and that we'll have someone who will do just as well or even a little better because they're new and they're trying to prove themselves, like the costume people have done this season.
You mean for Dawn?
I think they're going to use a lot of the same sets for a while, though, right? I mean, like
they probably
Big
will.
House and River Run
and the Brownsville.
Well, we're going to be going into Philadelphia and New York and all the rest. So
well, we don't know, do we?
That's
true. No, they're going into the war.
They could invent another story. Yeah, but they could have all the war out in a field.
Most of Breath of Snow and Ashes is on the ridge, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they pulled so much from that.
Well, that's true.
That I'm wondering if they're even. My worry, and this is my worry, is that they pull so much forward that they're not going to go beyond season 6.
Well, Meryl addressed that. I think I said this last time. She basically said we have not been picked up, but that it sounds like they're in discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, they should be because
their viewer. Matt said their viewer numbers for season 5 are the highest they've ever been. So
yeah,
I think that has a lot to do with the quarantine.
This is the best show Stars has.
Yeah.
Who cares why?
Yeah, who cares why? And it's a great season.
Yeah,
I mean, I am
it has been a great season.
This is inappropriate to say, but I'm so proud of Matt Roberts because I am not his mother or his sister, so it's like not appropriate for me to say. But I've watched him from the very beginning, and season 3 was just a clusterfuck, because he had to take over in the middle of the season and deal with
he wasn't really experienced as a showrunner.
He wasn't experienced at all. He was just a writer. Yeah. He was the most junior writer on this first team.
And that's, showrunner is a different showrunner is a different ball of wax.
Season 4 sucked. Ron was still involved in season 3. Season 4 sucked. And he came back in season 5 and knocked it out of the park. I just am like,
well, I don't think all of season 4 sucked. I have to disagree. No, I like some of season 4. I think there was some really good episodes in it. There were some that weren't good,
like 3,
but not like season 5 though, where most of them were good.
Yeah,
I thought. I have not rewatched. Let me tell you how bad the season 4 sucked. Season 4 sucked ass. I have not rewatched one episode of season 4.
Well, I liked a handful in season 4, and I just felt it was kludgy. It just seemed like cheap compared to this season and seasons before it. Okay, so let's go on. Carmen, do your standouts.
I have to say that Katrina and Jamie. I think of him as Jamie. I still think that Sam is just without peer. Honestly, he's up there with some of the greats actors of all time, in my opinion. Um, and his subtlety, as has already been spoken of, his nuance, his facial expressions. He doesn't go in there and chew the scenery. You know, he doesn't overact, and yet he is able to bring such impact. And I thought Kat did a phenomenal. This has been, I agree, been one of her strongest performances ever in the entire series. I have to say that I really liked Ian John Bell. I think he's doing a fabulous job as young Ian, and then Lionel did a really good job. The one part where I didn't care for his work too much was I thought he was a little melodramatic when he was in the surgery on the table. But as when he was being brutal and, you know, cynical and rough and everything, I thought he was totally convincing in his part. He's Irish. He's an Irish actor. I looked him up.
Oh.
And he's been in a Harry Potter, the Hallows one. What was that called?
Yeah, he's that creepy guy in the.
I didn't see any of the Harry Potter stuff, but he's been in one of them. But anyway, I thought he played his part superbly.
Yeah.
Isn't he like the groundskeeper?
Yeah.
For
the
Hogwarts.
Is that what it
Hogwarts.
is?
I've never seen any of them
Hogwarts.
either.
Hogwarts.
Hagrid.
Hodgepodge.
Goes to
The
Hogwarts.
school. For the, Hogwarts for the school.
Jeez. Okay, so my standouts are above and beyond anyone Katrina. I think that I think this episode rivals Faith. Like, I think those two stand out as Katrina's really shining moments. And Ned Dennehy as Lionel Brown. I just think, what a creep. And Sam, you know, it's almost like Sam's so good in this season that I'm starting not to mention him. You know, because he's so consistently great. I thought Ian did a great job. John Bell. I thought the intensity that he brought in the fight scenes as the you know, the Mohawk Ian was just awesome, especially after seeing him rehearse to Barbra Streisand. I thought Lauren Lyle was great in this episode.
She was.
And I'm going to mention Fergus. Cesar. I think Cesar does a great job when he's given stuff. I'm going to mention the director, Jamie Payne, Matt and Tony. And even though he had a little part in this one, I thought the guy who plays Chris Larkin, Richard Brown, so good. He's
so menacing.
He's subtle. He's subtle. You know, he just does stuff with his eyes.
Did you see he did this kind of lean?
Yeah.
Jamie was talking to him.
He kind of tilts his head and goes forward, and
he does a lot.
Then looks up.
Yeah,
he was looking up. You know, with
I think
his
he's
eyes.
probably a stage actor, the same as like a theater person, because he uses his whole body like Sam.
It's redundant now to mention the acting, because we all agree that you know, Katrina really threw down in this episode. She was excellent. She was restrained but powerful.
Yeah.
And so very effective and believable. And the rest of the ensemble just rose up to meet her. You know, so she and Sam leading and the ensemble rising up, elevating their performances, standouts. The other standout to me was the collaboration, obviously, that went on between the director and the performers and the writers, because the creative choices and the risks that they took in this episode were standouts for me. because I have discovered during this quarantine and watching a lot of the TV that there's a lot of hot garbage on TV. A lot of it is formulaic, redundant, gratuitous, and really, really bad TV. And
Simple
so,
dialogue.
yeah, and so for them to take the chances that they did in this episode to bring us something so daring, that is a standout for me. Because it would have been easy for them to just go along and do something that we were all used to.
Yeah.
So I have to give them a big up for taking the risk and for pulling it off.
This season has been very artistic, I think.
Very
that
much.
way. Yeah.
Do you think that we'll see more of Jamie Payne as a director? You know, we've always thought that the woman who, Anne, what was her name?
Forrester.
Forrester, that directed the wedding, was always, you know, sort of on this pedestal. I think Jamie Payne is he's just fabulous.
Yeah.
I hope we get more of him, because he gives us a perspective that is just takes you into the emotions of the scene, rather than just filming, you know, this is happening, this is happening. It actually has an emotional but it gave you the emotion of the scene, not just a record of what was occurring.
And the same, you know, as I mentioned before, he did the Beardsley episode.
Yeah.
He did the Brownsville episode. And if you think about the work on those, there's a lot of close-ups, there's different angles. There's different perspective, like looking at Jamie looking in the window at the Beardsleys. You know, things that you don't see people do.
Did he do Famous Last Words? I mean, the Ballad of
no,
Roger.
That was Stephen Wolfenden, who's also awesome.
Awesome.
I mean,
awesome.
that was
a
good
good episode.
Great directors over the time, and then some just okay ones, and it really shows. Yeah,
makes a hell of a difference.
That's
it
one
really
thing
does.
You can't really just fudge.
Yeah, so fire everybody except Jamie Payne and Stephen Wilson. The rest of them can go sit down. No,
I'm fading.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you've been faded.
You're
gone.
faded.
She's
I don't
propping
even-
herself against
Let
the
me see
wall.
what time it is. Oh my God.
Yes, it's midnight. It's close to midnight.
Yeah, it's midnight for us.
Yeah, it's almost 9
4-hour
o'clock.
Conversation.
I need to go and pretend to sleep.
It
I'm
is a
gonna
4-hour conversation.
I mean, yeah. So that means anyway. And
That means
We
Courtney,
clearly
you're gonna
need.
have hell.
We clearly need a weekend
Courtney,
sleepover.
Trust me, we appreciate what you do.
Okay. Love you
Good
guys.
night.
Thank
Love
you.
Good night.
Yeah.
All right, y'all. I
wanna
love
take
you,
them off.
but I have to
Anyway,
go.
good night, guys.
Love you.
Bye,
On that
triangle.
note,
Okay,
good
we're
night.
gonna do 501 in the next 2 weeks. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Bye.
What?
Bye.
All right. Bye.
501. Bye.
You ask me if there'll come a time when I grow tired